subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Found Su Mo in front of the courtyard. He showed off the strange changes in his body. This is... Seeing the red mark on Sakura's wrist, Okita Tsuji blinked with a very surprised expression. Command seal. Is the last master actually Sakura? Su Mo was equally surprised. He stretched out his left hand and placed it side by side with Sakura. The backs of their hands have different patterns, but the same type of red pattern. This is the command seal. It is something that the master uses to control his followers and give orders to them. Sakura possesses this, which means that she is recognized by the Holy Grail and becomes the last master. Huh? Am I the same as my brother? The confused Sakura asked happily. She didn't have much awareness about the Holy Grail War or anything like that. The reason why she was happy was that she seemed to have the same identity as Su Mo and was closer to Su Mo well. Okita Tsuji's expression was a little strange. How should I put it? With Sakura's current identity, she might become the master's enemy, she said somewhat amusedly. According to the rules of the Holy Grail War, the relationship between masters is indeed hostile. However, she was just joking when she said that 310. Just teasing this little girl. Chapter 197, however. Huh? Hearing her words, Sakura was a little surprised. Then I won't be the master. I don't want to be the enemy of Brother Su Mo. The petite little girl looked at the two with tears in her eyes. The little head shook like a rattle. She wanted to help Su Mo in the first place. What if she became Su Mo's enemy? Unexpectedly, Sakura actually cried directly. Okita Tsuji immediately comforted her in a hurry. Sorry, Sakura, I was just kidding. In fact, you don't have to be an enemy. You can still be a teammate. So don't cry. Really, please believe me. Will a master save me? Okita Tsuji, who is not good at comforting children. After comforting Sakura in a hurry, feeling that the effect was not good, she couldn't help but look at Su Mo with tears in her eyes. Want to seek help from her own master. Looking at the tearful kendo girl in front of him, Su Mo was a little speechless. It's okay to be killed for teasing a child. He cried halfway through comforting himself. This is really unique. So, Okita, you are really a comedian, right? Don't worry. Just becoming a master doesn't mean you are an enemy. There is another form called alliance. He touched Sakura's head and explained. Anyway, the Holy Grail War only needs the soul of the servant. The master is just a prop that is thrown away after use. And it's also a good thing for me that Sakura becomes the master. He said to the little girl with a smile. This is not to comfort her. Sakura is a member of our side anyway. She summoned the servant, even if she has no combat power. It is also meaningful in terms of intelligence, allowing Su Mo to grasp the overall situation in advance. Although it should not be difficult in the first place, but it is naturally much easier to change from 1v6 to 2v5. After hearing what Su Mo said, the flustered Sakura finally showed a surprised smile. Really? I can help Brother Su Mo? Yes. Su Mo nodded. After confirming this, Sakura immediately jumped up. The wish she entrusted to the Holy Grail has now been fulfilled. Her greatest wish is to be able to help Su Mo. The only problem is that with Sakura's magic power, it may not be able to bear the consumption of the servant. Su Mo frowned slightly. Most of the servant's magic power is provided by the Holy Grail. The master's magic power is only used in places such as materialization and combat. But even so, with Sakura's current body, it can't bear the consumption of the servant. At this point in time, even Princess Weber's magic power is far better than Sakura. What should I do? Seeing Sakura recover, Okita Tsuji finally breathed a sigh of relief. After hearing what Su Mo said, he became a little worried. If the magic power provided by the master is not enough, either the servant needs to obtain magic power by killing people, or the master needs to replenish magic power. This is not a good thing. Not to mention, Sakura doesn't have enough mana to replenish at her age. Seeing her worried look, Su Mo smiled. Don't worry, it's not a big problem. Originally, I didn't plan to let Sakura's servants fight. Even if mana is really needed, I can replenish it when the time comes. Although there is no long-term solution. After all, Kenna's skill of separating the mana supply line and the command spell line still has a considerable technical threshold. As the monarch of the Clock Tower, although Kenneth performed very poorly in the Holy Grail War, his magic talent was actually the highest in the Fourth Holy Grail War. Even Tosaka Tokiomi is far from being comparable to him. For the magic of the Type Moon world, Su Mo, who is not familiar with it, naturally has no way to replicate his skills in a short time. However, for Su Mo now, this is not a difficult problem to solve. He has plenty of mana. Just replenish it regularly, and it will be fine. Hearing Su Mo's words, Okita Tsuji opened his mouth in surprise, and his pretty face flushed. Looking at the master in front of him in disbelief, the kendo girl stammered, replenish, magic? Wait, master, Sakura is still a child. That kind of thing is too early for her. Okita Tsuji was really panicked. Sakura is only 6 years old. Master, you can't commit a crime? If you really can't help it, it's not that she can't bear some magic power. Just when she was hesitant and ready to say so, Su Mo sighed speechlessly. Looking at Okita Tsuji's expression, you know that she must have thought wrongly. What are you thinking? It's just replenishing magic power, not necessarily doing that kind of thing. Don't worry, it's just a conventional method. Even if it's him, he won't do it to Sakura now. What's more, the means of replenishing magic power are not just those things that will be reviewed. Directly granting protection and the like is also possible. There is no need for any special contact. Although, even if a closer contact is needed, Sakura will definitely not refuse. However, Su Mo has his own moral bottom line. Probably. After hearing what Su Mo said, Okita Tsuji finally put his mind at ease. Sakura looked at the two curiously. She didn't understand what they said, but she always felt that she seemed to have lost a good opportunity because of this. Tomorrow is the time when the Holy Grail War officially begins. After making a decision in his heart, Su Mo looked at the little girl in front of him. So, it's better for Sakura to summon the servant today. Yes. Sakura nodded obediently. Since Su Mo asked her to do this, she naturally had no objection. Then let's start now. Determine the type of servant, so that it is better to decide the subsequent strategy. Su Mo said, summoning a heroic spirit itself does not require much magic power. So even an ordinary person like Ryuno Tsuji can summon it. Although Sakura is young, she is also a person who has received some magic education. There is no need to worry too much about summoning. What needs to be worried about is maintaining the existence of the servant. However, the consumption in that regard will be solved by Su Mo later, so there is no need to worry. So, several people came to the basement together. After setting up the magic circle, with the help of Su Mo, Sakura began the ritual of summoning the servant. Chapter 198. Fill it up. Fill it up. I place your body under my command, and my fate is attached to your sword. The voice of the little girl sounded in the basement. Because there were no holy relics prepared, Su Mo planned to let Sakura use affinity to summon directly. Anyway, he didn't plan to let Sakura's servants exert their combat power. So, it doesn't matter if the summoned servants are weak. In other words, weak servants don't consume much magic power, which is actually more suitable for Sakura. For him, Sakura's safety is more important than the combat power of the servants. I just don't know. Which servant has a good affinity with Sakura? Sakura, on the other hand, doesn't know what Su Mo thinks. Her eyes are very firm. It's not easy to help Su Mo. She naturally doesn't want to give up this opportunity. So, no matter who it is, it's fine. If you can help brother Su Mo, please come and help me. Thinking so, she tried her best to recite the spell. I am the one who accomplishes all the good in the world, and I am the one who accomplishes all the evil in the world. 7 days of the 3 great words. Cross the wheel of suppression and appear, the guardian of the scales. After persisting in reading it, the magic circle shines brightly. The next second, the summoning is successful. The figure of the servant appears on the summoning circle. 170 magical girl Ilya and the pleasure monster the day before the Holy Grail War officially begins. Saber Team Su Mo is instructing Sakura in the servant summoning ceremony. The masters in other places also begin to rush to the battlefield of Fuyuki City. Although I say so, but the master who came to Fuyuki City leisurely on the last day. In fact, there is only one person. The master from one of the three great families, the Einsburn family dash. The android Irisveal von Einsburn. She came here by plane, with long white hair and ruby-like pupils. This lady looks as beautiful as a doll. As a man-made person, she is actually only 9 years old now, but she looks like a young woman of 17 or 18 years old. If you see this beautiful woman alone, no matter how elegant she looks, it is inevitable that there will be people who think they are of high status to come and chat with her. However, the existence next to Irisveal, it makes all people with conscience give up the idea of chatting with her. That is a cute little girl who looks only 10 years old, like an ice elf. The same white hair, the same ruby-like eyes. They are sisters connected by blood or a very young mother and daughter. Wow! Mom, is that Fuyuki City? Is the young dad in that city? Looking at the scene outside the window, the very cute little girl cheered softly. People who heard this couldn't help but show surprised eyes. Even the well-informed flight attendant didn't expect that this very young and beautiful lady in front of her was actually a mother. She obviously looked only 17 or 18 years old. He actually has a daughter in elementary school. After hearing this, people can't help but want to call the police. That bastard made this lady pregnant when she was a few years old. Is it really not a crime? And in the center of everyone's silent attention, Irisveal showed a somewhat distressed expression. She looked at the servant beside her, who claimed to be her daughter. She was a little embarrassed and said in a very low voice, "Ilya, no matter what you say, I have never had a husband, although I don't mind having a lovely daughter like you. But did you really not find the wrong mother?" The android girl asked doubtfully. She is only 9 years old. She is still a child. Even if she doesn't consider her age, she has never seen a strange man in the Einsburn castle. It is even more impossible to have a child, no matter how she thinks about the memories in her mind. Irisveal also clearly remembers that she has no daughter. It is impossible to have a daughter. Therefore, she has always felt a little strange about calling Ilya's mother. But for some reason, she was not repulsive to the girl in front of her. Instead, she felt very close to her. Hearing what Irisveal said, Ilya beside her immediately shook her head. "You didn't find the wrong person. Mom is mom. I won't recognize the wrong person. But at this point in time, it's normal for mom not to recognize me. Oh, I hope dad is not as stupid as Irisveal's mom." The cute little girl sighed as she said this. She looked like a little adult. Irisveal wanted to ask her daughter, who had just been recognized for a short time, who is the so-called father. But after thinking about it, she could only get answers like dad is dad and dad is the strongest. She could only give up. Smoothing Irisveal's hair, Irisveal said nothing more. Ilya on the side, however, could not calm down for the time being. She was able to see her father when he was a teenager. This matter made her very excited and nervous. If daddy didn't recognize me like Irisveal's mother, that fool, that would be fine, and most I could go back and act like a spoiled child. But if daddy didn't recognize me, Ilya didn't know if she could bear such a blow. Thinking of this, she looked around. Then she noticed that there was another passenger sitting next to her. It was a very petite, silver-haired little girl who looked only 5 years old. She was not old enough to fly alone, but for some reason, she didn't have a guardian with her. The silver-haired little girl had a very beautiful face, but her expression was extremely cold. Even if she noticed that Ilya was looking at her, the little girl also looked as if she didn't see anything and looked very cold. Maybe it was the mutual attraction between white hair. Ilya cared about this girl very much. Hello. She tried to talk to the little girl. "What's the matter?" The silver-haired little girl looked at her expression and was not friendly, but unexpectedly answered. Ilya thought she would ignore her like a puppet. "My name is Ilya. Can I be your friend?" Ilya asked tentatively. "Friend?" The silver-haired little girl showed a mocking smile on her face. "You mean you want a toy to kill time?" "Huh? What did you say?" Ilya subconsciously couldn't believe what she heard. Chapter 199, is the little girl in front of me making fun of herself? A toy to pass the time? There is no such thing. She immediately shook her head. I was just curious to see you flying alone. Ilya didn't expect that the little girl in front of her would be unexpectedly very venomous. Curious? The silver-haired little girl smiled slightly. The words in her mouth made Ilya feel like she was being pricked by needles again. No particular reason. My mother is dead. My father is not here. And I have no relatives. Of course, I can't be accompanied by my mother like you. Strange to say. It's obviously very pitiful content. The little silver-haired girl expressed her feelings without any hint of sadness. On the contrary, when she said this sentence, her tone was very pleasant. His eyes were also fixed on Ilya, as if expecting her reaction. Ah yes, I'm sorry. I realized that I seemed to have offended the other person by mentioning the other person's sadness. Ilya immediately regretted her apology. Only then did she realize her folly. She had been acting coquettishly with her mother just now, but now she was asking this little girl, both parents, why she was flying alone. From the perspective of the little silver-haired girl, this must be an ignorant, naughty child digging into her wounds and rubbing salt into her wounds. Although Ilya has no such idea at all. But after this misunderstanding is caused, being disliked is inevitable. Zoe asked for flowers, 0. She bowed her head and apologized, feeling that she would never be forgiven. However, what surprised her was, after seeing her panic expression, the little silver-haired girl seemed to laugh. Then, he said in a cheerful tone, "It's okay. Considering your performance, I forgive you. I know that you definitely didn't mean to mention the matter of her dead father in front of a 5-year-old child." Saying this, the little silver-haired girl deliberately increased her tone. Sorry. Ilya apologized again. She didn't know if the little girl had really forgiven herself. But hearing her words, she did feel guilty. However, something that the young Ilya didn't notice. Seeing her distressed expression, the little silver-haired girl couldn't help but smile. It seemed like he was deliberately trying to make her feel guilty and distressed. The innocent Ilya felt guilty and a little curious. Then why did you go to Fuyuki City? If there is anything you can do to help, just tell me. My dad is in Fuyuki City and will definitely be able to help you. When it comes to her father, Ilya obviously has a lot more confidence. As for Ilya's question, the little silver-haired girl just shook her head. I came here this time for work reasons. Huh? Hearing this, Ilya showed a puzzled expression. It's not that she was rude. Instead, a 5-year-old girl said with a serious face that she had work matters. No matter who it is, they will question it after hearing it. Is this child making up lies? It seemed that her expression was too obvious. The little silver-haired girl was a little dissatisfied after seeing it. You just said that your father can help? Is that true? She asked deliberately. Yes. Dad is the strongest. Ilya nodded. The little silver-haired girl thought she had taken the bait. Then he deliberately asked in a pitiful tone, "If that's the case, I want to ask your father to adopt me. Is that okay? I am about to be taken away by 2 very bad guys, imprisoned, and lose my freedom immediately. Or is it really not possible?" As soon as she finished speaking, she shook her head. Don't sound too pathetic. Ilya, who was new to the world, immediately patted her chest. No problem. Just make it clear to Dad. If it's true, Dad will definitely agree. Aha! The silver-haired little girl nodded. A pleasant smile formed on the corner of his mouth. That way I'll feel relieved. But before that, do you want to discuss it with your mother? Well, that's right. Simple Ilya nodded. He turned around and said something to Irisville. The little silver-haired girl who witnessed this scene couldn't hide the smile on her lips. Only a child would naively agree to do this favor. It is simply impossible for an adult to accept that his husband should raise a daughter he does not know at all. She had foreseen it. This little girl, named Ilya, agreed to something she shouldn't have agreed to without permission. Then he was pushed on his knees by his beloved mother and spanked in front of everyone. Thinking of Ilya crying at that time, she couldn't help but feel pleasure. 171, the defeated Colin and the targeted Ilya, sure enough, under the gaze of the silver-haired little girl. The innocent kid named Ilya, after Fu Er expressed her thoughts to her mother. The beautiful lady's expression immediately changed. Next, the wife will definitely scold her children. After spanking the child, come over and apologize to her again, saying it's just a child talking nonsense and being ignorant. She guessed something dark in her mind. The lady seemed kind. However, if you can live to be 10 or 20 years old, you are definitely not a fool who does not understand the ways of the world. For such emergencies, even if it may sting your conscience a little, but rationally, it is almost impossible to accept sudden outsiders. It's nothing if you just give money. When it comes to living together, everyone knows that one should be cautious. Think of this. The little silver-haired girl felt even happier, thinking of this lady's state of mind torn between conscience and trouble. She couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth even more. Sure enough, as she expected, the lady looked over quickly. The little silver-haired girl thought for a while, knowing that it was impossible for this lady to accept the temporary adoption of a daughter. So she felt that she could add fuel to the fire. As a result, she looked very pitiful and almost had tears in her eyes. A 5-year-old 310 girl asked for help with this expression. I had to refuse again. In this case, this young and beautiful lady should show such an expression of pain and distress. How long will her conscience suffer from this? The little silver-haired girl was looking forward to this. Don't know why. She felt like seeing others in distress and suffering. It's just too much fun. Let this kind and lovely lady realize that her kindness has its limits. Let this little girl, who seems to live in a pampering environment at first glance, realize that there are still evils in the world that she is powerless to do. Thinking of them, they were suffering from this. Chapter 200, the expression of a conscience that suffers from this. She felt that she was extremely high. That's all. She hid her smile and showed a very pitiful expression. Suddenly noticed, the expression of the lady in front of me seemed completely different from what I had imagined. What a struggle between sensibility and reason. What torture of morality and conscience. None of them. This lady with white hair and red eyes looked like a little girl who had been touched by a fairy tale. He looked at himself with a moved expression. Oops! The little silver-haired girl realized that she might roll over. Don't know why though, but the young lady in front of me, who looks to be only 17 or 18 years old, may only have the mental maturity of a few years old. After being moved, I immediately ignored it, etc. Actually, I was just kidding. The little silver-haired girl was about to say this, but it was too late. The wife was so moved that she hugged him directly. He hugged this ill-fated little silver-haired girl tightly in his arms. It's so pitiful that you have to work so hard at such a young age. Irisville was directly moved by the experience of the little girl in front of her. She hugged the cute child. Then he said it directly. Come to my house and be my child. Although I have no experience, I can be your mother. Anyway, Ilya has an extra daughter for no apparent reason. Adding one more is actually nothing. This child is so miserable and yet so cute. It's hard not to feel sympathy. And faced with Irisville, who is overflowing with compassion. The silver-haired little girl was completely confused. This is not the expansion I want. You should reject me. Is this guy not only a good guy, but also so out of line? Do you know how much it costs to raise a child? Think of this. She immediately warned in a fearful and timid tone. Really? But isn't it expensive to raise children? She said so. I really hope this woman wakes up. Reject me quickly. However, hearing her words, Irisville blinked. Money? How much does it cost to raise a child? The little silver-haired girl nodded immediately. Going to school and living are very expensive, and when a child gets sick, it costs a lot of money. Most families simply can't afford it. She tried her best to exaggerate the difficulty of raising children. Irisville had no intention of giving up. Oh, that's it. If you are really short of money, selling my castle should be enough, right? Living in a magic family. She doesn't have much idea about money. However, no matter how much money is spent, selling the castle should be enough. What do you mean? Sell the castle? The silver-haired little girl was confused. Do you still have a castle at home? What kind of family do you have? Are you sure you're not kidding? Irisville thought that the other party was just asking questions, so she nodded. Castles in Germany cannot be sold, but the castles and land in Fuyuki City should be for sale. So, you don't have to worry about money. The innocent Irisville once again hugged the adorable little girl in front of her. The silver-haired little girl was speechless. Your family doesn't just have a castle. She was completely speechless. Even with her eloquence, she didn't know how to refute. The other party's arrogance shocked her. Damn it. Is this the power of rich people? Look at her silence. Ilya thought she agreed. He immediately happily came over and touched the silver-haired little girl's little head. I will be your sister from now on. Remember to call me Sister Ilya. The little silver-haired girl looked at her speechlessly. I call you a hammer. It's you, this idiot, who makes me wonder how to get out now. She vowed that if there was a chance in the future, you must let this white-haired brat know who your real sister is. And I want you to cry and shout out. Shaking, Ilya was happily stroking the little girl's head and immersed in the joy of becoming a sister. Suddenly, I felt my body tremble. It was as if he was being targeted by some troublesome person. This feeling seems familiar. Before she could continue to think about when she had seen this feeling before, the little silver-haired girl in front of her struggled to break free from Irisveel's arms. She was very angry at the mother and daughter in front of her who didn't play by the rules. So, she lowered her proud head. He apologized to the two of them in a polite manner. So, elite. The little silver-haired girl held back the humiliation in her heart and lowered her head. Actually, my father is coming to take me home. Those words I said before were all because I was afraid to say them nonsense. I'm sorry. Feeling that things were out of her control, she had no choice but to give in. If the wife in front of me really wants to take him away, although it's not impossible, she doesn't care what kind of life she will encounter in the future, nor how she will be treated. However, the mother and daughter in front of her should be just ordinary people. Ordinary people can't take her away. After all, her so-called father, the guy who doesn't look like a human, is not an ordinary person. He is a priest of the Fuyuki City Church and a local boss. In Fuyuki City, it is impossible to hide. So, I can only refuse. If it's not true, you can't be my daughter? Hearing the words of the silver-haired little girl, Irisveel showed a disappointed expression. If the silver-haired little girl in front of her could be her daughter, she would like it very much. Really? Ilya's expression was a little doubtful. Unlike the simple Irisveel, she didn't simply believe the other party's change of mind. She felt that the little girl in front of her might be telling a lie now. Really? The silver-haired little girl nodded. Ilya's expression was still doubtful. Chapter 201. Not long after, the plane landed. Ilya was walking at the airport exit. She saw a man dressed as a priest walking towards the silver-haired girl next to her, and was called father by the silver-haired girl. She finally believed what the silver-haired girl said. It turns out that she really has a father. However, if that's the case, why did she say that her parents were dead before? Ilya was a little confused. No matter how much she joked, she wouldn't tell such a bad lie, right? However, looking at the two people, although they look completely different, they don't look like human traffickers. She didn't know what to do, and before the silver-haired girl left, she suddenly remembered something. Hey, I don't know your name yet. She shouted loudly and waved over there. She hoped to attract the attention of the silver-haired girl. However, although the distance was not far, the other party seemed to have not heard it and continued to walk forward. Until she reached the corner, the silver-haired girl stopped and glanced at Ilya. Then, after a pause, she gave her name in a not-so-loud, cold voice. 3.0 Colin. Colin Aldelia. Then the figure disappeared. Only Ilya and Irisveel were left standing there. Colin. Ilya repeated the name. Her tender little face was suddenly filled with shock. That was Sister Colin? Recalling the chill she felt before, it was obviously the same as when Colin was staring at her. She immediately confirmed the identity of the little silver-haired girl. Wow, it's over. I actually let that guy call me sister. I won't be bullied when I go back, right? I will definitely be bullied, right? No, that's not right. Sister Colin seems to like bullying me from the beginning. Could it be that because of what happened just now, she really hates me in the future? Magical girl Ilya felt a great crisis in her life. She finally understood why. Colin treated herself and others differently. Finally, she understood that the initial evil consequences were caused by her own hands. She panicked. Hurry up and find a time machine. A time machine? No, I want to find my father. In this situation, only her father can save her. So, where is my father? She finally thought of the main topic. 172-9-year-old woman, Kodo mind Kirai's mentality has changed when Ilya finally realized how big a mistake she had made. The little girl with silver hair. Karen Aldelia, following her biological father, got into the black car. Kodomine Kirai is her father's name. He was once a first-class agent of the Holy Church. He is also a priest with a certain status. However, Karen has no extra feelings for Kodomine Kirai. It is better to say that she does not regard this person as her father. She does not even regard him as someone related to herself. In terms of surname, Karen took her mother's surname. Her mother died a year after she was born. The mother committed suicide, which was not in line with the Christian doctrine, so her daughter was also regarded as a child of sin. The church therefore refused to baptize her. Refusing baptism means refusing God's blessing. In the church, she would be discriminated against. Kodomine Kirai, as a father, seemed to be completely unaware of the existence of this daughter. Not only did he not raise her, he could even be said to be indifferent. Under such circumstances, Colin was adopted by a strict old priest and lived a very hard life, so she was too precocious. Until a few days ago, the priest who adopted her received a letter from Kodomine Kirai and Kodomine Rise. He wanted to raise his daughter himself. It was a very natural and reasonable request for a biological father to raise his daughter. It was so reasonable that people couldn't help but ask what had he done before. In addition, a considerable amount of support was paid with the letter. Not to mention, Kodomine Rise was a priest of the 8th Mystery Society of the Cathedral Church and had a high status within the Cathedral Church. Various factors were added. The old priest naturally had no reason to refuse. He bought a plane ticket for 05 Karen and sent her here. As a 5-year-old child, Karen had no room to express her will on the way. She could only follow the arrangement and came to Fuyuki City. However, although she was leaving the strict old priest and returning to her biological father, but Karen had no expectations for this. About Kodomine Kirai, she didn't know much, but she vaguely remembered the calm eyes of this silent man at her mother's funeral. That was not the look a normal person should have. His wife died, whether it was joy, sadness, regret, or pleasure. Those were all manifestations of human emotions. But Kodomine Kirai, this person didn't have these things. Karen didn't understand why at first. It wasn't until she realized her own personality later that she vaguely understood. The man named Kodomine Kirai, like herself in some places, was flawed inside. His mother died because of this flaw. In the car, two taciturn people sat together. Naturally, no one spoke. "I am Kodomine Kirai, your father." After a long time, Kodomine Kirai, who was wearing a black priest outfit, spoke first. Even when facing his own daughter, his expression was still distressed, like an ascetic monk. Colin Aldelia. The silver-haired little girl also reported her name. She did not regard the person in front of her as her father, so she would not call him that. Kodomine Kirai did not care about this. "I called you here this time because I have a task for you." Kodomine Kirai said straight to the point. "I heard that there is a job to be done." Colin nodded, with an attitude of equal dialogue. "Just what are the specific requirements?" "I don't think there is anything that a child like me must do," she asked calmly. Colin herself was aware of her twisted personality. But other than that, she did not have any special talents. Whether it was learning, divine arts, or physical fitness, there was nothing special. It was hard to imagine that there was a job that only a young girl like her could do. It's hard to explain the details. You'll know when you get to the church. After Kodomine Kirai finished speaking, he shut up and remained silent. "Oh." Karen raised her eyebrows slightly, but didn't ask any more questions. This strange father and daughter fell into a strange silence. In front of the car, the driver who was responsible for driving had cold sweat on his forehead. As a believer, he volunteered to help the church work. But what he didn't expect was that the always serious godfather Kodomine Kirai actually had such a lovely daughter. Chapter 202, what's even more unexpected, is that the conversation between father and daughter can be so special. Are all the families of priests so cold? Subconsciously, he felt that he might need to distance himself from the church. After all, he has a happy family and a lovely daughter. But we can't follow in his footsteps. After arriving at the Holy Church, there was no greeting, no greetings, no inquiries about whether you were tired from the journey. Kodomine Kirai took his 5-year-old daughter directly to the basement of the Holy Church, crossing the barrier of divine magic. Soon, they arrived at a prison-like existence. Then Colin saw it, a loli with short silver hair who looked about the same age as the Ilya I met before. He was firmly bound to the center of the dungeon by thick magic chains. The little girl's arms and legs were covered with scars. The little head was hanging down, as if he was asleep. The basement, the chains, the silver-haired Lolita covered in scars. Seeing this series of pictures, it is easy to think that something is wrong. Is this what you want me to see? Colin looked at her nominal father with contempt. His eyes were very contemptuous. I see. It turns out you have this hobby. Hear your daughter's words. Even a tax evader like Kodo Mine Kirai couldn't help but blush. You misunderstood. It's not what you think. He explained this. He was directly interrupted by Karen's sneer. Oh, you can talk to the law enforcement team about this. Yes, she was going to inform the Holy Church that she was going to kill the bride for justice. Before coming here, she had prepared the magic gift for reporting. It seems that my preparations have not been wasted. However, before she was ready to activate the ceremony, Koto Mine Kirai's urgent explanation made her give up this plan temporarily. Wait, this guy is not a human. He is a servant. Servant. Karen hesitated when she heard this word for the first time. Then, she glanced at Koto Mine Kirai. You continue to quibble, and I'll listen first. Even Koto Mine Kirai, who has no desires. After hearing what my daughter said, my mentality couldn't help but change a little. The so-called servants are, we are currently supervising the Holy Grail War. He is Tosaka, Tokiomi's assistant. After adjusting his somewhat collapsed mentality, he explained the rules of the Holy Grail War in detail. Oh, that's it. It's pretty similar. Colin nodded, roughly understanding what Koto Mine Kirai said. Koto Mine Kirai felt that his mentality was a little unstable again. Just at this time, the silver-haired loli behind Colin also woke up from her deep sleep when she heard the noise outside. After opening your eyes, seeing Karen in front of her, the 5-year-old silver-haired girl looked at each other with the silver-haired loli, who looked about 10 years old. Then, the 89-year-old silver-haired loli shouted hesitantly, "Mother!" Colin turned around suddenly and stared speechlessly at the silver-haired loli in front of her, who was obviously several years older than herself. What did you call me? She is only 5 years old. 5 years old. You, an old woman who looks like 8 or 9 years old, call me mom? The little girl who was tied up in chains looked at Karen carefully and then shook her head. No, you are not my mother. Colin nodded in her heart. This is right. Then, the silver-haired loli who was bound by chains looked at her carefully and spoke again. Your mother is dead. Karen's eyes suddenly widened with anger. Some can't control their emotions. What does it mean to be a careless mother? 310. Although her mother was indeed dead, this was the first time she heard someone say that directly. Although I have no feelings for my father at all, but for his mother who died when he was 1 year old, she was still a little impressed. In my memory, the silver-haired mother was very gentle and loved holding her as a baby. She still remembered that warm embrace. A bit like the arms of the cute lady I met on the plane today. Thinking of this, she immediately shook her head. I think I misremembered it. Throw away cluttered thoughts. Looking at the silver-haired loli in front of me, I remembered what she said before. Karen felt that her mentality had changed slightly. This little brat, does he want to die? The silver-haired loli who was bound by chains did not stop. She looked at Karen seriously and continued. You don't have a mother anymore. I don't have a mother either. You're just like me. We are sisters, but you're older than me. I am my sister. You are my sister. According to her own logic, the silver-haired loli made some deductions. He also regarded Karen, a young girl who also lost her mother, as his companion. Faced this little girl's words. Colin's mentality was a little broken, but she also discovered that the silver-haired loli in front of her was a little unclear and her self-understanding was a little confused. Even if she cursed back, she wouldn't understand. So, she turned around. She stared at her father, Koto Mine Kirai, with a fake smile. Your mother is dead too. Koto Mine Kirai looked innocent. What does this have to do with me? You were cursed by her, and you came to curse me? Fortunately, my mother is your grandmother. She died a long time ago. Koto Mine Kirai didn't care about this. Unexpectedly, a small basement. There are actually 3 horseless people hiding. It's so scary. 173 The transformation of the pleasure monster. Jack the Ripper, although I was a little speechless about Colin's reaction. But seeing that the servant accepted Colin, Kodomine Kirii finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the plan went smoothly. Chapter 203 If this servant recognized his daughter, he wouldn't be like a mad dog. He attacked his own master. On the other side, Colin was called sister by the silver-haired Lolita. The silver-haired young girl looked at Kodomine Kirii beside her with a Seema-like expression. So, what's going on? The silver-haired young girl asked very courageously. Kodomine Kirii took out the tray directly. As the supervisor and manager of the Holy Grail War, the Holy Church's duty is to maintain the conduct of the Holy Grail War and the local order. As the representative of the Holy Church, Kodomine Rimesa is fulfilling his duties. However, because of his personal relationship with the Tosaka family, he preferred to let Tosaka Tokiomi obtain the Holy Grail. After all, what the magician pursues is just the root. Even if you get a wish from the Holy Grail, it will not threaten the church or Fuyuki City. For stability reasons, it would be more stable for Tosaka Tokiomi to obtain the Holy Grail. With this idea in mind, Kodomine Kirii was sent to become Tosaka Tokiomi's student, and then pretended to be an enemy after falling out. Secretly, they formed an alliance and helped Tosaka Tokiomi win the Holy Grail War. I heard such a convoluted plan. Karen really wants to ask, is there something wrong with your brains? But she held back, because Kodomine Kirii talked about the silver-haired Lolita. In order to help Tosaka Tokiomi, Kodomine Kirii also summoned heroic spirits. Just when summoning, something seemed to have happened unexpectedly. Colin's mother's relic box was not packed away. A photo fell down. It seems that this was used as a catalyst to summon servants that would not have been summoned originally. A silver-haired Lolita. If that's the case, that's fine. Anyway, he only plays a supporting role. Even if the servant has no fighting ability, he can still play other roles. However, what he and Kodomine Rimesa didn't expect was, just after the silver-haired loli appeared, he directly killed the 2 of them. The servant summoned this time turned out to be a rare murderer. Even though both Kodomine Kirii and Kodomine Rimesa are proficient in Bajiquan, it is difficult for their human bodies to resist the attack of the servants. Fortunately, there is a command spell. After evading Chu Jian's killing, he managed to restrain the murderous ghost. For this reason, Kodomine Rimesa was seriously injured and has been transferred to the Holy Church for treatment. Kodomine Kirii discovered that this silver-haired loli didn't obey orders at all. In addition to calling mom every day, I just want to kill him. There is no other person who has such a bad compatibility between a master and a servant. With no other choice, Kodomine Kirii remembered the photos on the summoning array. It was Karen in her infancy. So, he thought that maybe his daughter could solve this problem. With a letter, he called back this daughter who had no intention of meeting him. Unexpectedly, it was surprisingly useful. This servant recognized his daughter just by meeting her. After checking their eyes, they are all horseless people. After listening to Kodomine Kirii's story, Karen couldn't help but ask, who is this servant's real name? Can such a young girl be called a hero? This is what she cares about most. Kodomine Kirii nodded and arrived. Servants don't have to be heroes. As long as they are famous, they can be anti-heroes or fictional heroes. After investigation, Mr. Tosaka and I have confirmed the true identity of this servant. Jack the Ripper. She is the true identity of the famous killer in the Twist City. It is also the collective resentment of tens of thousands of abandoned unborn children. The resentment formed by the gathering of tens of thousands of abandoned fetuses. This is the true identity of this silver-haired Lolita. Because she was abandoned by her mother, she always wanted to find her mother and pursue her mother and maternal love. And because he was never born at all, her mental level is only that of a child. After listening to Kodomine Kirii's introduction, Colin seems to know the silver-haired Lolita, little Jack's true identity. Her young face was a little dark. She also heard Kodomine Kirii talk about the summoning of servants. A photo of yourself can summon little Jack. There must be something in common. The biggest thing they have in common is, needless to say, very obvious. She glanced at little Jack speechlessly. She remembered this grudge. But there's no point in arguing with this brat. Colin turned her attention back to Kodo Mind Kirii. So, you specifically called me here just to help me stabilize this guy's mood? That's right. Kodo Mind Kirii nodded. The restraints of the command spell cannot be used easily. In order for her to be effective in daily life, she needs someone who is willing to obey. Since Assassin agrees with you, your job is to command this servant together with me. The ultimate goal is to bring victory in the Holy Grail War to Tosaka Tokiomi-sensei. He stated his request with a serious face. Hear what was said before. Karen didn't show much. However, when he heard Kodo Mind Kirii express his ultimate goal with a serious face. But she couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh. "Ha, why are you laughing?" Kodo Mind Kirii was a little surprised. The content of his work is indeed the same. This was a decision that was agreed upon by both his father and Tosaka Tokiomi's families, and there was no room for doubt. Seeing his performance, the 5-year-old silver-haired girl showed a very mocking look. You said it before, right? If someone does not have a wish of their own, they will not be chosen by the Holy Grail at all. But you still qualified for the command spell. Either the Holy Grail system is wrong, or you actually have a wish for the Holy Grail, but you haven't realized it yet. Hearing Colin's words, Kodo Mind Kirii frowned. He subconsciously wanted to refute, but found that there was no room for rebuttal. He couldn't help but cover his chest. "I have a wish for the Holy Grail?" Rarely, his expression was a little confused. Seeing him like this, Colin couldn't help but reveal a happy arc at the corner of her mouth. The silver-haired girl spoke like a little devil. "It is very likely so. Why don't you think about it? If you get the Holy Grail, what wish would you make?" Follow her words and imagine. After a long silence, Kodo Mind Kirii still shook his head. "No, I can't think of any wish that needs to be placed on the Holy Grail." Colin was not surprised to hear this. She already knew the nature of this man. Wealth, love, family affection are meaningless to this man. In fact, all beautiful things can't make him feel happy. This may be the same for her, but it is precisely because she found the similarities between the two. She understood more clearly what this man was longing for. So, the smile on her mouth became more pleasant. "If you don't want to make a wish, then will your hidden wish be directly related to the Holy Grail?" Chapter 204 with a slightly joking tone. She gave an example casually. For example, the moment before your teacher Tosaka Tokiomi obtained the Holy Grail, he smashed the Holy Grail directly or something? Hearing Colin's words, Kodo Mind Kirii subconsciously thought of that scene. Tokiomi Tosaka, who had gone through so much hard work, was proud to see that his plan was successful, and he happily asked Kodo Mind Kirii to hand over the Holy Grail. In his happiest moment, Kodo Mind Kirii suddenly destroyed the Holy Grail. Thinking of Tosaka Tokiomi's expression as he fell from heaven to hell at that time, Kodo Mind Kirii couldn't help but let out a dull laugh. Is there anything more pleasant than this? Not at all. If anything, I will kill Tokiomi Tosaka when the time comes. It will surely be more enjoyable. After a dull laugh, it took him a long time to come back to his senses. Immediately, he realized what he had just done. What's going on? He couldn't help but question his daughter. His tone was confused and panicked. Why would I be happy about this kind of thing? Okay, Zhao. As a member of the clergy, this kind of thing is not allowed in the first place. But why? Why is it that when I think of that scene, endless happiness surges up in my heart? Is this really the right kind of pleasure? Regarding such Kodo Mind Kirii, Colin just said it without any surprise. Because this is your nature. Kodo Mind Kirii. Extract pleasure from other people's pain. That's the kind of person you are? She made the assertion with absolute certainty. Get pleasure from other people's destruction? Kodo Mind Kirii looked at his hands in confusion. It was as if I was meeting myself for the first time. He showed a very dazed expression. Seeing his behavior, Colin chuckled lightly, but did not disturb his transformation. Instead, he lightly jumped into the cell where little Jack was kept and used the key to release the servant from his restraints. As expected, little Jack, who was freed from the restraints, did not attack others again. She obviously looks 8 or 9 years old. But in little Jack's perception, he may not have been born yet. Therefore, she regards her horseless companion Colin as a sister. Facing her sister, she is quite obedient. The Holy Church, the assassin group, is ready. 174 Miss Okita kills everyone when Colin, Ilya, and others just got off the plane. Matu residence. The summoning array in front of Sakura lit up. What kind of servant can be summoned based on this child's characteristics? Sumo was very curious about this. Soon, the answer was revealed. Servant Berserker came according to the contract. Who is my lovely master? A girl in a blue kimono with dragon horns on her head appeared in the center of the summoning array. The girl wearing white stockings has a very beautiful appearance and a good figure. The dark golden pupils trembled. Soon, she recognized her master based on the contract of the command seal. It was the youngest Sakura, although I have sensed the aura of a companion born for love. But even I didn't expect that master would be so young. Oh, it's really a bad fate. The girl who calls herself Berserker opens the folding fan in her sleeve and hides her smile. Her eyes involuntarily drifted from Sakura to Su Mo. I don't know what I'm thinking. Beautiful sister, are you my servant? Sakura boldly looked at this extremely cute elder sister. Master is really good at making people happy. The girl with long cyan hair smiled, knelt down, and touched Sakura's hair. Yes, I am your servant, although I saw the appearance of this servant. Su Mo had already confirmed her identity, but I still asked for safety reasons. Berserker, can you tell me your real name? As you can see, your master and I are in an alliance, and there is no problem with sharing information to this extent. I heard Su Mo say this. Sakura nodded too. Well, sister, you don't have to hide anything from your brother. Brother Su Mo is the most reliable. Even the master said so. So naturally as a servant, you can only obey orders. I am a servant born for love. The green-haired girl held her head high and introduced herself. Sakura 327 showed an expression of who knows this. The girl was quite shocked. My name is King Ji. I should be quite famous in this country. She gave her real name. Really? Su Mo had a suspicion when he saw the girl. After revealing his identity, his guess was confirmed. As expected, it is the girl who burned everything for love, Kyoheim. Only, except she is a beautiful girl with white stockings. The biggest characteristic of King Ji is that she is Yandere and has a certain degree of dragon attributes. If it is summoned based on phase, what does Sakura have to do to summon this guy? Is there anything in common between the two of them? Su Mo looked at Sakura in confusion. Sakura also blinked and looked at Su Mo, looking like she was waiting for praise. It's amazing. With Kyoheim's help, we will definitely win the Holy Grail War. Su Mo touched Sakura's head, temporarily put aside the issue of compatibility, and praised her. Unexpectedly, after he disrupted the order of the heroic spirits. In the end, the one summoned by the Matu family was still Berserker. However, unlike Lancelot in the original work, Kyoheim is the type who can maintain rationality even though she is too crazy. However, her Yandere-like paranoia has not disappeared. Fortunately, it was Sakura who summoned her this time. So Kyoheim didn't seem to regard Sakura as a lover. Instead, she regarded her as a companion. This relationship is very convenient. After getting to know each other roughly, Kyoheim also understood the current situation. So far, all 7 masters needed for the Holy Grail War have appeared. The 7 servants needed were all summoned. The Holy Grail War will officially begin tonight. Ms. Okita must show her skills and not let down the master's trust. Okita Tsuji was very excited. He was obviously ready to kill. She had never felt so good before. Chapter 205 is physical fitness is all A level and is simply invincible. Today, she is going to let those ancient heroic spirits know what the unparalleled swordswoman is. Yes, Su Mo nodded as if coping. He couldn't remember when he asked Okita for help. I always feel like Master is looking down on me. Regarding Su Mo's slightly perfunctory answer, Okita Tsuji puffed up his cheeks and felt dissatisfied. If you can overcome the weakness, I can trust you. Su Mo spread his hands. Unable to overcome this negative buff, Ms. Okita would be better off switching to a career as a comedian. Although it was a bit rude, that's what he really meant. After hearing Su Mo's words, Chief Okita shook his head. Master, you are overly worried. Although sickness is troublesome, it actually doesn't happen very often. Plus, I have the Master's reinforcements, so I can recover much faster, so there must be no problem. If you don't believe it, let me, Okita, fight in the first battle today. I will definitely bring you victory, Master. With that said, Tsuji Okita set up the flag with great enthusiasm. See her confident look. Su Mo couldn't help but speak. Then let's make a bet. If you can defeat the first enemy servant, I will grant you a request. If you fail to defeat the first enemy servant you encounter, then you owe me a request. After hearing his words, Sakura and Okita Tsuji's eyes lit up at the same time. Master, are you serious? Tsuji Okita was very excited. Originally, she wanted to prove herself in front of the Master. Now there is another attractive condition. It's hard for her not to be motivated. Of course it's true. Su Mo nodded. As long as the requirements are within reasonable limits. Okay, deal. The excited Chief Okita immediately high-fived Su Mo and signed a contract. In the eyes of Tsuji Okita, this is simply a bargain. If she wins, she can even ask her master to do various things with her. As for losing, how could she lose? All A-level attributes, plus a sure-killing magic sword. Even if she didn't have any particularly high-level noble phantasm, she didn't panic at all. How to lose when Flying Dragon rides on the face? With his own sword skills and Shuchi's speed advantage. No matter what enemy you encounter, you can easily suppress it. It even gave it no chance to release the noble phantasm. Unless you encounter a guy with a damage-reducing treasure, it might be a little trickier. However, there are not many defensive noble phantasms, and there are even fewer with higher levels. No matter how unlucky I am, I won't be able to meet such a servant from the beginning, right? How unlucky that would be. Ms. Okita, who was very confident in her luck, did not panic at all, but actually wanted to laugh. I am stable. Looking at Okita, who was covered in flags, Su Mo blinked and said nothing. He always felt that Okita would be slapped in the face if he continued on this trend. I don't think it's an illusion. On the other side, Brother Su Mo, Sakura also wants to participate. Sakura on the side said, with some longing. She has no interest in fighting, but she was very interested in Su Mo. This was a rare opportunity for Su Mo to agree to his request. Sakura naturally didn't want to miss it. Only, it's too early for this kind of thing, Sakura. Su Mo shook his head and rejected her. That's the kind of thing he's talking about. Of course, it doesn't mean something weird, but it means fighting. With your current magic circuit, you can't withstand the exhaustion of fighting with servants. Not to mention, you are not mentally prepared to directly participate in the Holy Grail War. In this case, you are not suitable to step into the battlefield at all. Unlike before, Su Mo was very serious when it came to combat issues. The tone was more decisive, not as soft as before. Hear him say that. Sakura clenched her little fists. For Brother Su Mo, I can fight. The little girl showed a firm look and said. Hearing this, Su Mo smiled. His tone became serious. The battle itself is not sacred, but it entrusts life and death and contains the weight of life. Although your Okita sister is usually silly, her awareness in battle is no child's play. Whether she is killing someone or being killed, she has already been aware of it. Are you sure you are ready for this? Hearing Su Mo's words, kill and be killed, the young Sakura thought for a moment, then nodded again. If it's for Brother Su Mo, even if his life is in danger, the young girl expressed her determination, but was interrupted by Su Mo. I understand how you feel. Not to mention being killed. Your child's character is too soft. Even if something more tragic happens, you won't complain. But do you have the consciousness to kill someone? Su Mo stared at Xiaoying, as if questioning her heart. Sakura opened her mouth, but no words came out. It was too early for her to deprive others of their lives. After hesitating for a long time, she was about to make up her mind and wanted to speak. Su Mo raised another question. What if it was your father who was to be killed? The Tosaka family is also one of the 3 great families, and Tosaka Tokiomi is also a participant in the Holy Grail War. The probability of us meeting him this time is very high. Sakura was silent. For this father who abandoned her. Whether she could kill him for such a young thing, she couldn't think of the result. Well, Brother Su Mo, I'm not ready yet. Sakura finally understood what Su Mo meant. She didn't even consider how to deal with this possibility. So she was indeed not suitable to step onto the battlefield. This was a protection for her, and it could also make Su Mo feel at ease. After understanding this, the well-behaved girl naturally knew what she should do. Stay at home obediently and wait for Brother Su Mo and Sister Okita to return. This is the greatest help to Brother Su Mo, seeing Sakura's convinced look. Su Mo touched her little head again. Don't worry, you will learn a lot of things naturally when you grow up, and I will teach you then. We still have a lot of time, so don't rush. Hearing his comfort. Sakura nodded in understanding and rubbed against Su Mo. Su Mo cast his eyes on Kingji beside him. Kingji, when we go out to fight, I will leave the matter of taking care of this child to you. I have set up a defensive spell here. If you encounter an enemy, you can deploy it without hesitation. If you encounter an emergency, just call my name directly. Hearing her words, Kingji nodded. Chapter 206, understood, Lord Su Mo. I will definitely take good care of Master. Although she is a berserker, she is surprisingly reliable at this time. Very reassuring. 175 battle with the Golden Lancer. Miss Okita wins. After planning, Su Mo didn't take action immediately. After all, it was still daytime. Then he continued to practice swordsmanship for a day. At night, after dinner, it didn't take long for Su Mo to notice an astonishing fluctuation in magic power. This aura full of fighting spirit is obviously a follower inviting all other followers to fight. Are you so impatient? King Ji was a little surprised. The Holy Grail War has just officially begun. Logically speaking, now is the stage of testing each other and obtaining information. At this time, I directly invite everyone to fight. It's like betting on cards, putting all your chips in at the very beginning. What a confidence. Look at this clear fighting spirit, Master. The enemy seems to be a very powerful warrior. Tsuji Okita sensed the clear fighting spirit of the servants who invited him to fight. I felt a little itchy for a while. As a warrior, she was not willing to miss such an opponent. Well, this aura, it seems like things are getting interesting. Su Mo showed an interested expression, being able to directly invite everyone to fight with great fanfare from the very beginning. The one who can make such a move must be the mysterious and confident Kenneth. However, judging from the aura of this servant, it is definitely not the Demiludo in the original work. The scent of the brush can't be that strong. In particular, he also felt the breath of the gods. This is very interesting. Saber, let's go. Go meet this confident warrior. Su Mo made a decision immediately. Yes, Master. Tsuji Okita was very happy. You will see the enemy soon. As long as you defeat it, you will be able to obtain a request. Gi, Matu residence is some distance away from the servant who invited him to fight. Su Mo just drove there as usual. The journey probably took nearly 10 minutes. However, within 10 minutes, no one responded to this servant's invitation to fight. Until Su Mo and Okita Tsuji walked to this deserted port one after the other. Only then did this servant stop his aggressive provocation. Are you coming? Wearing golden armor, the spearman shines like the sun. He looked at Su Mo and Okita Tsuji, who were walking towards him with calm expressions. I was worried that someone else would steal our opponent, but we were lucky. Okita Tsuji said very happily. Faced with such a challenge, no soldier would not want to accept it, right? She was also worried about being robbed by monsters on the way, preventing her from getting rewards from her master. Unexpectedly, he was so lucky that he was the first to arrive. Big victory for Okita. After hearing her words, the golden spearman shook his head. It's not that you were lucky, but you were the only one who responded to the battle. Other servants and masters must be preparing to collect information first. He didn't praise his opponents or belittle others. The golden spearman said very honestly, "Oh, so that's it." Only then did Tsuji Okita think of this. It's not that she's not good at thinking. In fact, Okita Tsuji is quite slender sometimes. However, the words now are different, You don't need to think about strategies or anything like that. I leave all this to the master. With the master here, Miss Okita is too lazy to use her brain. It seems that compared to other servants, I am very lucky. Master is very supportive of me coming to fight. She looks smug. It's written all over his face that my master is so awesome. It's a pity that the enemy in front of him is not a person who can complain and answer questions. Seeing the master and slave standing together, the golden spearman asked, "Which one of you will be my opponent? Or should I say, both of you together?" Generally speaking, a follower must fight a follower. Naturally, his only opponent is Okita Tsuji, who revealed his identity as a servant. However, the spearman in front of him did not stick to this point, although he couldn't detect the aura on Su Mo's body. However, he once had the honor to inquire about the life and value of the weak in his lonely body at the end of the world. Because of this inheritance, he has the power to grasp the essence of the opponent. As a servant, one possesses the inherent skill of a rank, poor man's insight. Although even so, he couldn't get a clear picture of the man in front of him. But one thing is for sure, the man in front of me must be a very strong warrior. That's why he asked. Hear this. Okita Tsuji was not surprised. She naturally knew that her master was very strong. But if you want to challenge the master, you must pass me first. The long sword Kaga Kayamitsu appeared in his hand. Okita Tsuji walked forward full of fighting spirit. Servant Saber, please give me your advice. Looking at Okita Tsuji, who was ready in front of him. There was also Su Mo, who was obviously not going to attack. The Golden Spearman knew that he had only one opponent. He nodded. Servant Lancer, please teach me. In the unmanned port under the Miyuan River Bridge, the first battle of the Holy Grail War began. Two servants stood opposite each other. Without too much words, Okita Tsuji decided to take the lead in the attack. The powerful magic blessing from the master gave Okita Tsuji a monster-level ability value template, coupled with her own exquisite swordsmanship at the level of a swordsman. Let her have a great advantage in hand-to-hand combat. Ordinary second and third-rate servants can't hold on for a few times. Maybe they don't even have time to release their treasures, and they may be beheaded by Okita Tsuji directly. However, Okita Tsuji's opponent this time is not an ordinary second and third-rate servant. The enemy she faces is also a top-level one among all the servants. Clang! 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 The Golden Spearman parried Okita Tsuji's attack with his amazing spearmanship. The blade and the spear tip collided to create sparks. The aftermath of the clash of weapons alone was enough to destroy the entire street. Facing Okita Tsuji's ghostly swordsmanship, Lancer parried it one by one with equally exquisite, or even superior, spearmanship. The martial arts displayed by both sides were amazing even in the eyes of the servants. So strong. Waving out a storm-like attack, Okita Tsuji was very frightened. With Su Mo's magic blessing, her all-round ability values were higher than the opponent's. Chapter 207. Whether it's strength, agility, or durability, he is far superior to his opponent. After all, even between A levels, there may be a gap. Okita Tsuji's A level may be just a little short of EX. Not to mention, except for agility, Lancer's other abilities have not reached a level at all. However, with such an advantage, his offense has never been able to work. He was directly blocked by the opponent's powerful spear skills. Even Okita Tsuji, a talented kendo girl, has to admit it. If you don't use your own magic sword, with swordsmanship alone, he is no match for his opponent. The first opponent was so difficult. It didn't disappoint her. On the contrary, it ignited her fighting spirit. As a warrior, if you are afraid of difficulties, how can you get out of the battlefield? Unable to hold on for a long time, she made a prompt decision and activated her noble phantasm. Haori of the Oath. In the name of Tsuji Okita, I swear this. No matter what, you must win. No matter what, I have to gain the right to demand the master once. With this mentality, Okita Tsuji activated his noble phantasm. 0. Ask for flowers. 0. She has an extra light green Haori that symbolizes the Shinsengumi. Haori of the Oath. The effect of this pair of noble phantasms is activated. Her already ridiculously high ability values were further improved. In addition to increasing the ability value, this noble phantasm also increases the level of the weapon. Kaga Kaimitsu in the hands of Tsuji Okita also evolved into Kikuchi Manji Normion as one of Fuso's most famous swords. Okita Tsuji could not use the long sword Kiku Ikemen Normion as a noble phantasm. However, this A-level noble phantasm itself has a very tough material and sharpness. The lethality of Okita Tsuji's swordsmanship has once again been raised to a higher level. It can be said that it is a shotgun exchange for a cannon. Tis tis dash. Okita Tsuji, whose ability value has been improved again and the level of his long sword has also been improved, has become more oppressive to Lancer. Originally, Lancer's abilities were quite different. Now the gap is widened further. Under such circumstances, even with divine-level martial arts, it would be difficult to fully protect oneself. Okita Tsuji's swordsmanship gradually began to leave wounds on his body. Although the wound was not deep, it was healed quickly, but the battle was still going against him. After confirming this, Lancer, who received the master's instructions, also used his own skills. Emit magic fire. Reaching a level, the highest level of magic release skill, instantly increased his ability value. At the same time, his attacks are also equipped with fire enchantment. Suddenly, the gap in physical fitness between the two narrowed. The battle became stalemate again. Okita Tsuji found that even though he had liberated the noble phantasm, he was unable to widen the gap and seize the opportunity to win. After a stalemate for a while, they decided to use the noble phantasm to decide the outcome. Fortunately, her noble phantasm is not the type that requires special effort to continue liberating magic power. It can be used completely in battle, therefore it is very difficult to guard against. So, after finding the right time, Tsuji Okita is here. 1-step ultrasound, 2 steps without a break, 3 steps to death. The nameless 3-stage thrust. This time, luck was very good. Miss Okita has not lost her temper and has not been affected by sickness. The pair of human-demon swords were swung perfectly. With his super high ability value and the blessing of the high-level noble phantasm of Wakiku Ikemanji no Myun, this sword exerted its power to the greatest extent, instantly breaking through the Lancer's armor in front of him. After feeling the feeling of the sword breaking through the enemy's body, Okita Tsuji fell into ecstasy. Miss Okita wins. The perfectly executed magic sword, in her current state, can exert A-level lethality. Even if the enemy has armor, the power of Wu Ming's 3 thrusts can completely ignore the opponent's defense. In this case, the opponent will take a blow from himself. Although the spiritual core was not damaged, it was impossible to exit directly. However, serious injuries are inevitable. The enemy was seriously injured, but he himself was intact. In this state, as long as you press forward step by step and don't let the opponent use the noble phantasm, you'll definitely win. Even if the opponent's master uses a command spell to directly transfer Lancer away. But it was still the opponent's defeat. According to the agreement between her and Su Mo would owe her a request. This wave is stable. In this case, unless the opponent has a damage-reducing treasure, it is impossible to maintain the previous fighting level. 1 step forward, 1 step back. When the advantages add up, victory will definitely belong to you. Noble weapon that can reduce damage is such a common thing. At least she didn't think her luck would be that bad. So, in other words, Miss Okita will definitely win. Talent. 176. Miss Okita rushes into the street. A real hero kills with his eyes repulse with 1 strike. Ms. Okita, who successfully caused huge damage, took 2 steps back. Stay at a distance where you can continue to attack at any time. She waited for the moment when the other person would cover his wound and his actions would be affected. Then beat the drowned dog again. You can kill the enemy with combos. However, she thought so, but he only received a compliment. A beautiful sword. Okita Tsuji looked over in disbelief, but found out Lancer, who was stabbed directly in the waist by her sword, did not show any pain on his face. Not to mention the pained expression, the other person didn't even frown. After touching the wound, he just complimented him and had no other reaction. Not to mention being seriously injured, It looked like the other party had only suffered a flesh wound, neither painful nor itchy. Could this be a bluff? Tsuji Okita thought so. However, he saw that the wound where Kikuchi Minonorizinome caused damage was unexpectedly much smaller than he had imagined. And the wound is still healing. It looks like it will heal soon. Miss Okita had a question mark on her face. Is this reasonable? Her killing sword caused such damage that was worse than a mosquito bite. Teaching 327 practice, someone is cheating. He seemed to notice her expression. Lancer did not hesitate to clear up her doubts about this resolute swordsman. To be honest, the armor below can reduce the damage to only 1/10. So, even though your previous secret sword was powerful, it was not enough to cause fatal injuries to me. Limited to the master's orders, I can't provide any more information. This is a description of the effect of his armor. Chapter 208 Lancer shut his mouth, as if ordered by his master not to reveal anything further. And after hearing this sentence, except for Su Mo, all the masters and servants who watched this scene took a deep breath. Can the damage be reduced to only 1/10? This is a hammer. Even if the anti-city noble phantasm is weakened to only 1/10, it won't be enough to take away the opponent, right? In other words, can the opponent even withstand the release of an A-level noble phantasm without any defense? Are you kidding me? This defensive treasure is a bit too buggy. And Tsuji Okita on the battlefield. It was particularly shocking. Is it really a damage reduction treasure? After hearing what Lancer said, she was so depressed that she almost spit out a mouthful of blood. What evil has she done? Why is she so unlucky? It possesses the unnamed 3-stage thrust that can break through defenses. Ordinary armor was of no use to her. Even high-level armor cannot protect against her secret sword. The only armor with damage reduction effect is a natural enemy to her. No matter how powerful the sword skill is, as long as it cannot fire the light cannon, its power has a limit. Once this power is reduced, the damage that can be caused is not high. Not to mention, the opponent's armor directly cut off an absurd 90% of the damage. This turned her secret sword into a complete mosquito bite, directly destroying her biggest killer move. How to fight this? But come again. Miss Okita did not give up. She can fight another 300 rounds. Okita's Tsuji figured out that if his fatal move was of no use, he would rely on delaying time to decide the outcome. In order to compete with his own strength and speed, Lancer activated the magic power release skill. This skill consumes a lot of mana. Even if the opponent's master is very good, he can't last long. But it's different on her side. The master's magic power is almost endless, and there is almost no need to consider consumption. So, in a protracted battle, she has the advantage. Although relying on the master's magic power to win, in the end it was used in exchange for demands from the master, which sounds a bit rogue. However, in order to be able to hang out with Master, she can accept this stigma. Miss Okita rushes to the duck with the mentality of consuming magic power. Okita's Tsuji rushed forward again, and the gun and sword fought together again. However, this time, the intense battle lasted for dozens of seconds. Miss Okita was about to activate her noble phantasm, but she encountered an accident. 1-step ultrasound, 2 steps without a break. 3 steps to death. Nameless poof. As she was about to activate her noble phantasm, she suddenly vomited blood and fell to the ground. Miss Okita is on the street. Her abacus was very good. If she could really continue to consume magic power, she might really have a chance of winning. But Miss Okita forgot. She has sickness debuff and is also not good at protracted battles. But now, she had bad luck and the curse had struck, and she had directly lost the power to fight. Seeing this scene, even Lancer, a veteran warrior, was stunned. What's going on? He fell to his knees in the middle of the fight. He was stunned for a moment. His master was not stupid. Lancer, get rid of her while you can. Without enough time to use magic to communicate, Lancer's master directly shouted loudly, using amplification magic. Everyone heard his order. Perhaps some followers would express disdain for this act of taking advantage of others. But everyone has to admit that this is indeed a good time. Kill him while he's sick. If this enemy is eliminated at once, the possibility of victory will be greater. hearing his master's orders. Although I feel that this is not in line with the spirit of martial arts. But Lancer is the type who respects his master more than his personal wishes. So, he raised the golden spear high. The tip of the gun flashed with cold light, but it didn't fall. Because, rumble, the sound of thunder sounded, and a dazzling thunder light rushed from awaken Bridge. At the same time, a thunderous roar resounded throughout the port. Stop! No fighting is allowed in front of my king's charioteer. It was obvious that other servants had intervened. He didn't want him to take Saber's life. If he continues to kill Saber, he will be crushed by a wheel shrouded in thunder. But for him, that won't be a fatal injury. At this moment, the next order from the master came. Stop the attacker. Kill Saber. Lancer is asked to stop the attacker while killing Saber. This requirement is too harsh anyway. The Will of Thunder and Light has the power of liberating a noble phantasm of a level or above at least. And the other party has already taken the lead. At this time, no matter what kind of servant you are, you should only be able to choose one side. Either dodge the attacker's noble phantasm, or take the opportunity to end Saber's life zero. There is simply no way to have both. However, Lancer's expression did not seem awkward. For other servants, it might be something that cannot be done, but for him, it is not the case. It is not difficult to do two things at the same time. A true hero kills with his eyes. As he said this, the spear in his hand drew a sharp arc and chopped off Saber's head that fell to the ground. And his eyes were looking into the distance. He was tightly locked on the oncoming thunder chariot. Brahma, cover the earth! As the words of the release of the noble phantasm were finished. In Lancer's eyes, a golden laser cannon suddenly shot out. The golden laser cannon directly and accurately hit the oncoming lightning. Boom! The two noble phantasms collided, making a deafening sound. Lancer did not pay attention to the brilliant sparks above his head, but looked at the place in front of him. The golden spear that was originally used to finish off the enemy was blocked by a pitch-black long sword. Saber, who was vomiting blood for some reason, was held in the arms of the master, holding the pitch-black long sword. That was the master who came with Saber. As a human master, steadily blocked the attack of his own top-level servant. This scene was bizarre enough. Although Lancer himself was not very surprised, he had long noticed the extraordinariness of this man. But whether it was Lancer's master or others who used familiars to observe the battlefield, they were all shocked and speechless. Even the servants might not have the confidence to take Lancer's attack. But the master in front of him caught it with one hand. Is this really something that humans can do? Su Mo, who blocked Lancer's attack. At this time, he didn't care about Lancer or what the master behind him thought. He just looked at Okita Tsuji in his arms with a little amusement. He said with a relaxed tone, Chapter 209, Miss Saber, should you be willing to admit defeat? And Tsuji Okita collapsed in Sumo's arms. He had a grimace on his face. Although I was very happy to be held by Master, but thinking that she had lost an opportunity to make demands on Master 3.0, she couldn't be happy. I give up, she said reluctantly, no matter how unwilling you are to accept it. She also understood that if the Master didn't take action, she would really die. Therefore, I completely lost this bet. There is no room for regret. But what does Master plan to ask of me? Okita Tsuji asked after thinking for a while. She suddenly realized that even if she failed, it didn't seem to be a loss. After all, he was originally the Master's servant. Originally, the Master had the power to order himself to do various things. So, even if this request is placed in Sumo's hands, it doesn't seem to make much sense. Rather, she hopes that the Master can come up with more and further content. It's better to say things like this in private. Sumo shook his head and had no intention of continuing the conversation. The servant just now seems to have come over. They looked not far away together. The direction from which the thundering bullet cart is coming. 177 Ishtar wants to kill someone when Lancer issued a challenge to all followers. A strong man with red hair and a thin and weak man came to the Weiyuan River Bridge. It is the rider combination from the Holy Grail War. The conquering king is Kandar, and his master and princess, Waver Velvet. At this time, the battle between Lancer and Saber has begun. Hey, rider, it's too high here. Should we go down? Weber, who was a little afraid of heights, looked at the river below his feet, and said to his followers, "Huh, you can see clearly only from a high place." The conqueror laughed and patted Weber on the shoulder. Flashing, Weber felt that if he hadn't hugged the king of conqueror's thick arms tightly, he might have fallen. He didn't seem to have thought about the possibility that the conqueror king deliberately wanted him to hug him. You know, in the era of the conqueror king, philosophy was very popular. Watching the wonderful battle in the distance, even with Ryder's knowledge, he couldn't help but admire it. He is indeed a hero who transcends time and space. Back then, I didn't have such powerful warriors under my command. Seeing this, Weber also looked towards the battlefield. "Ryder, are we observing here to reap the benefits?" he asked curiously. If Ryder, a tall and thick man, had this intention, but he changed his view slightly. However, to his disappointment, the conqueror's answer was not the same. "It's 0.5 smaller, the layout is smaller." He looked at the young Weber and shook his head. "I just want to see which party is qualified to join me." "There is nothing to say about Ryder's narcissism," Weber asked, trying not to pay attention to it. "Then which one do you think is qualified?" In his own eyes, these two servants were as strong as monsters, and it was difficult to tell them apart. "I originally wanted to hear Ryder's opinion and see which one is stronger." Unexpectedly, Ryder's answer was, "I want them all." Weber was speechless again. Only children want them all, and adults know they have no choice. But that's not the point. While the two were chatting, something unexpected happened on the battlefield. The heroic young swordsman vomited blood and fell to the ground for some unknown reason. At this moment, the golden spearmen were about to kill Saber. The conquering king finally couldn't sit still. A flash of lightning flashed across the sky. The noble phantasm, divine power wheel, arrives, and the flying hoofed thunderbolt arrives with the chariot. The conquering king hugged his master and jumped into the chariot. Then he commanded the flying hoofed thunderbolt and rushed towards the battlefield at the port. "Stop! No fighting is allowed in front of my king's charioteer." Iskandar shouted to stop. If the opponent insists on killing Saber, they will face their own thunderbolt. Even if the opponent possesses a super powerful defensive noble phantasm, it will be difficult to fully absorb one's own noble phantasm. This is an A+ grade noble phantasm. Iskandar, who forced the opponent to make a choice, did not expect it. This Lancer can be so fierce. "I want to fight on two fronts." He killed Saber and stopped himself at the same time. Even though he was determined to save Saber, the noble phantasm issued by Lancer was obviously different. He could only protect himself first, and only then could he completely liberate his noble phantasm, ravaging dominance from afar. Before the blue thunder and gold lasers collided with each other, the clever conquering king had already jumped into the sea with his master. Boom! The collision of the noble phantasms made a loud sound. Cancel each other out. After a few seconds, the conqueror king brought his master with him, climbed out of the waves. Then, the conqueror king was shocked to find that Saber was not dead. Not only that, Saber's master actually blocked Lancer's attack easily. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but be amazed. "I never expected that such a hero could be born in modern society. As a human being, being able to compete with the top servants is really unbelievable." After sighing, he looked at Su Mo enthusiastically. "Let me ask you, are you willing to join my conqueror, King Iskandar? The treatment is negotiable." Su Mo was completely speechless when he heard this. "Forgive me for refusing. If the treatment is really good, then that's it. But in the army of the conquering king, there are no girls if they want, and there is no strength if they want strength. All gay. There is no need to stay at all. Is this so?" The rejected conqueror is not embarrassed either. He immediately looked at the other two people, Saber and Lancer. "I only have one master." Suji Okita, who was in Sumo's arms, hugged Su Mo directly and shook his head. "I also already have a master." Lancer also shook his head and refused. "What a pity. Is there no room for negotiation?" The conquering king tried to bargain. "If you are willing to become my subordinate, I am willing to share the joy of conquering the world with you." Chapter 210, however, he still received 2 rejections in response. Impossible. Turned down. Being rejected by the 2 people one after another, Iskandar felt a little regretful. Behind him, Weber, whose whole body was soaked by the sea water, couldn't help but jump out. Idiot! Idiot! Didn't you recruit not one of them? Weber looked at his servant with a resentful look on his face, like a weakling who had been bullied. Ha ha ha! There's no better way to talk than to give it a try. The conquering king responded with a hearty laugh. Interrupted by this pair of masters and servants, the atmosphere on the battlefield became a little happier. At this time, Okita Tsuji's sickness curse seemed to have passed. Although she still sticks to Su Mo, it is only out of personal will. In fact, she can stand on her own. Su Mo temporarily let go of her and looked at the conquering king. He asked in a nonchalant manner, "Speaking of which, do you want to join my staff? I can still make some simple wishes, such as letting the servant get a body or something." Knowing the wish of the conqueror king, he said with some profound meaning. And here his words. Weber was speechless for a moment. "Ryder, you idiot, aren't you being recruited in reverse? Wait a minute. What's going on with your expressive expression?" He originally just wanted to complain, but unexpectedly found that the conqueror king's expression was obviously moved. Weber suddenly panicked. Could it be that my servant ran away with another master? Fortunately, the conqueror king is not such an unscrupulous person. After hearing Weber shout, he slowly shook his head. "It is indeed a very sincere condition. Although I don't know how you knew my wish, it is a pity." After taking a look at Weber, he shook his head. "I am more accustomed to conquering everything myself, and have no intention of becoming someone else's subordinate." Rejected Su Mo's invitation. Weber breathed a sigh of relief. Fine. His servant has some integrity and knows how to be loyal to his master. Should you treat him better in the future? Weber thought so. The next moment, I wanted to strangle myself for having this idea. I saw. The conquering king, Iskandar, jumped onto the top of the container and shouted in a loud voice. "You guys hiding in the dark and peeping. As a heroic spirit invited to the Holy Grail War, you don't dare to show up here. Do you want to hide around like a rat in the gutter? If this is your plan, then don't blame me, Iskandar, for humiliating you cowards." He directly issued a challenge to all the other followers. What it feels like to be in the spotlight. Weber finally knew. At the same time, he also experienced what it felt like to be enveloped by strong, murderous intent. After these words came out, in the distant Tosaka residence, Tokiomi listened to the voice coming from his familiar. My whole body was numb. It's over. That guy will definitely fall for it. And sure enough, above the port, higher than the tallest container where the King of Conqueror is located, there is a golden brilliance condensed. Even Waver understood that the fourth servant appeared because of Ryder's provocation. Before the people arrive, the sound comes first. 327. Originally, I just wanted to enjoy a clown performance, but I didn't expect that there would be a bold idiot who dared to slander the goddess. Even if this goddess is in a better mood, you will never hesitate to die. A slightly cold girl's voice sounded. After the golden glow condenses, a girl with twin tails, who looked to be about 16 or 17 years old, appeared. The servant who calls herself the goddess is suspended in the air. Burgundy eyes looked at the rider master and servant at his feet with murderous intent. Witness this follower. Most people's first reaction is that they don't recognize it. Except Su Mo isn't this guy, the grown-up Rin Tosaka? He recognized the iconic look. Then the identity of this servant is immediately deduced. Either Ishtar or Ereshkigal. And listen to the other party's arrogant tone. Most likely Ishtar. And on the conquering king's side, he was indeed planning to use the provoking method to provoke other followers. But the existence of the self-proclaimed goddess still surprised him. Can the Holy Grail War still summon a goddess? He looked at his master in confusion. It's impossible according to common sense. Weber shook his head. Gods and heroic spirits are not a systematic existence at all. But this guy does call himself a goddess. The conquering king was a little confused. After pondering for 2 seconds, he suddenly realized either there is something wrong with the Holy Grail system. Either this guy is actually a berserker, but he is just not clear-headed and thinks he is a goddess. It would make sense if that were the case. The conqueror couldn't help but patted Weber's thigh. Why don't you take pictures of yourself? Weber, who was grinning, had no time to care about the pain in his leg. At this moment, he looked at the servants in the sky in horror. For the first time, I felt the killing intent as deep as the sea. Very good. You dare to call this goddess a madman. Ishtar narrowed her eyes slightly, actually extremely angry. Looks like it's time for you to feel the wrath of the goddess. 178 Ishtar. My father never scolded me standing on Tianzhou Anna, looking at the people below. At some point, 10 thumb-sized gems appeared on Ishtar's hand. Although I know that humans in this era are very stupid, but I didn't expect that even the so-called heroic spirits are just idiots. I enjoy the honor of meeting the goddess, but I don't even know the name of the goddess, and I dare to slander the goddess as a madman. Originally, Ishtar had a very bad temper. Although after merging with the young Tosaka Rin, his temper became much better. However, he is definitely not the easy-to-talk type. Even Tosaka Rin would be angry when hearing what Iskandar said before, not to mention Ishtar. Therefore, he aimed at all the masters and servants present. The angry goddess threw a lot of gems directly. Let you have a hard time. So saying, the dazzling gems began to burst into dazzling light. Boom! 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 Each gem bursts into a beam shot, although the intensity is not as strong as Lancer's previous laser beam. But it's not too different. And what's even scarier is, the goddess continued to drop gems in a steady stream. The attacks of dozens of light cannons, not to mention the master. Even the servants have difficulty defending against them. Lancer, who was affected, relied on his martial arts to intercept the light cannon attacks one by one. For him, this attack is not much of a threat. Ryder protected his master behind him, and then used the long sword in his hand to split the light cannon of the jewel magic. Because it was his speech that angered Ishtar. Chapter 2, 11. The number of gem light cannons flying towards him was the largest. Ryder, who had lost the wheel of divine power, felt a little difficult to deal with so many light cannons. His martial arts were not bad, but not as good as Saber and Lancer, although he was not completely unable to deal with this move. But it was not worth using his biggest trump card to deal with the opponent's casual attack to vent his anger. Just when the Conqueror King was unable to hold on alone and was about to use some of his trump cards, Su Mo made a move. He casually slashed a sword towards the sky. The vertical and horizontal sword energy shattered the gems along the way and destroyed the light cannons together. Not only the attack in front of him, but also the gem light cannon in front of the Conqueror King was removed. Then, the remaining sword energy flew into the sky and slashed directly at the goddess Ishtar. Thank you. Seeing that the crisis in front of him was resolved, Ryder thanked Su Mo very generously. You're welcome. Su Mo shook his head. You also wanted to help my saber before. It's just a courtesy. At this point, he looked at the goddess above his head. Besides, I don't like this goddess who randomly shoots map cannons. If you want to fight the King of Conquerors, just fight him. Why do you have to involve yourself? Su Mo really wanted to complain about Ishtar's behavior. How willful is she to attack all the servants below together? Hearing Su Mo's words, the King of Conquerors shook his head. Even if I don't do anything, Saber will be fine. Witness Su Mo taking Lancer's attack. Also saw the other party cut off dozens of gem light cannons with one sword. Only a fool would treat him as an ordinary person. And at this time, Su Mo's sword energy has already slashed towards Ishtar. This is not a full-strength sword energy, so naturally there is no way to hurt the goddess of Venus. But it is enough to anger her. You dare to resist the goddess? Ishtar raised her eyebrows and questioned Su Mo. However, after really noticing Su Mo's appearance, her tone inexplicably softened. This boy is quite handsome. In front of the goddess of beauty, good looks are preferential. When Ishtar noticed Su Mo's appearance and had a little affection for her, Su Mo looked at the goddess unhappily. He scolded her without any hesitation. Are you a fool? When someone scolds you, you attack everyone? Do you think you can defeat all the servants present just because you are Ishtar? Hearing Su Mo's scolding, Ishtar's anger rose instantly. I just improved my affection for you a little bit, and you scolded me and called me a fool? Even my father has never scolded me like this. You bastard. The moment the goddess was about to get angry, but she heard Su Mo say her name. The expression on her face changed immediately. The figure disappeared from the sky and appeared in front of Su Mo the next moment. Ishtar looked at him with surprise. You know me? You know my name? Goddess Ishtar was very happy. In Uruk, her name was known to everyone. She never thought that someone would not know her. However, after the summons of the Holy Grail War in heaven, she found that she seemed to have come to an era where the belief in the goddess was extremely weak. Not to mention devout believers. There was not even one person who knew her. Not to mention people who knew her. There was not even one person who believed that she was a goddess. The father of this body, Tosaka Tokiomi. Although the disguise was very good, Ishtar's eyes as a god could see it. This guy was half believing and half doubting, and didn't believe that he was a goddess at all. He thought he was another servant who borrowed the name of the goddess. Not to mention other people. She thought that the experienced servants would recognize her name. Unexpectedly, she had said so much. Still no one recognized her. Her previous anger, in addition to being unhappy with Iskandar's words. There was also a certain degree of anger and humiliation in it. She is the mistress of the sky, the most beloved daughter of the god, and she is the goddess of beauty, harvest, and battle. She has become a nameless person. With this mentality, she will punish other masters and servants. That is the punishment for not recognizing the title of the goddess. However, now, she unexpectedly heard her name from Sumo's mouth. Ishtar immediately ignored the guy's previous offense. She came to Sumo all of a sudden and looked at him with shining eyes. I didn't expect that in an era where the belief in gods is so weak, there are still such devout believers like you. After thousands of years, you still remember the goddess's appearance. This goddess is really moved. Yes, this goddess is the mistress of the sky, Ishtar, the most beautiful goddess in the world. After reporting her name, Ishtar looked at Su Mo expectantly, waiting for this young and handsome believer to burst into tears of gratitude. However, after hearing her long string of words, Su Mo didn't react at all. If there must be one, that is, he just nodded perfunctorily. He looked very cold. What kind of attitude do you have? Ishtar suddenly became unhappy. I am a goddess, the divine body you believe in. Why don't you treat me with respect and pray for the goddess's protection? Ishtar felt that she had given in a lot. As long as the other party treats you with as much dignity as possible. A reward given to the goddess by oneself. This was during the time of Uruk. Even those priests were not generously promised. But look at the other person like this. Seems completely ungrateful. Not only was he ungrateful, but he also showed a subtle expression. That expression seemed to be saying, "Is there anything wrong with your mind?" Sumo said bluntly. I heard him actually say that. Ishtar couldn't help but take a step back and cover her heart. She was serious about her retreating action. This sentence hurt so much. You. The goddess was so angry that her ponytails were floating up. She was beyond anger. I know that people in this era are hopeless guys. Not only do you not recognize the goddess, but you also wantonly ridicule her. Even the guy who recognized the goddess looked like this, with no respect at all. Me too. I've almost had enough of this. He stared at Su Mo in front of him with eyes full of anger. Ishtar, the goddess of Venus, tried to suppress her last trace of anger. Chapter 2:12 said, if you could repent of your behavior wholeheartedly now and realize your disrespect, now I can still, Zhao, let you go. Otherwise, if you have to force me to take action, after the Holy Grail War is over, I will take you back to my time, let you have a good understanding of the glory of the goddess. From now on, you are mine. Ishtar, who felt that Su Mo was in line with her aesthetics, had no intention of killing or torturing him. If Su Mo still refuses to treat her with respect, she planned to kidnap Su Mo directly. Take him back to Uruk. Let this guy, under the influence of his followers, re-recognize the greatness of himself, the mistress of heaven. When the time comes, he can only trust himself when he is alone. Sooner or later, he will become his loyal servant. Thinking of this, Ishtar even wanted to let the other party refuse. After all, Su Mo was excellent both in appearance and strength. If this guy can help himself, with his level of excellence, he might be able to defeat that golden Pika. He might even become the king of Uruk. If so, act as this guy's mistress. Wouldn't she become the supreme goddess of Uruk? It sounds exciting. Ishtar had an inexplicable thought in his mind. I started to expect the other party to reject me. 179 The Bull of Heaven. The fury of the goddess for Ishtar's request. Su Mo didn't have time to speak. Suji Okita in his arms couldn't bear it anymore, etc. Miss Okita jumped out and looked at the goddess in the sky angrily. I don't care what kind of existence you are. Whether it's a god or a servant, master is not something you can monopolize alone. If you want to rob the master, you must get through me first. The Kendo girl drew her sword and stared intently at the servant who threatened to take Su Mo away. She is Su Mo's regular follower. She should be the one who wants to be with Su Mo no matter what. Seeing Suji Okita's reaction, Ishtar sneered. Your swordsmanship is indeed good. Even as a fighting goddess, I am not allowed to praise you. But what can you do with your cursed body? Ishtar admired Okita Suji's swordsmanship very much. With the body she currently relies on, she is no match for her in close combat. However, she did not feel that this saber was a threat to her. The goddess's eyesight easily saw through the curse wrapped around Okita Suji, knowing that this saber could rush into the street at any time. After hearing Ishtar's words, Suji Okita was silent for a moment. Then, he showed a determined expression. Even with a sickly body like mine, I still have something to protect. If you insist on taking action, I will accompany you to the end. Master, let me protect you, poof. When he spoke the last sentence impassionedly, the curse of sickness happened to be activated. Miss Okita snapped and jumped onto the street again. Seeing this scene, even the fierce goddess was speechless. Is this saber really not here to liven up the atmosphere? The expressions of other servants and masters were equally subtle. Before he was about to throw 327 to the ground, Suji Okita was pulled by Su Mo master. Miss Okita, who was hugged by Su Mo again, showed a moved expression. Sure enough, master was the best to her. Think so. Then, she heard Su Mo's complaints. Sure enough, sometimes I still feel that saber. You might be popular as a comedian. He said what most people here wanted to say. A small sentence caused a lot of psychological harm to Ms. Okita. Ugh! The Kendo girl showed a tearful expression and clutched Su Mo's chest tightly. Even if you are a master, there are things you can say and things you cannot say. What do you mean by a comedian? I am master's servant, and I am the one who wants to protect master's safety. Is that so? Nah, master. Why do you look away? Why don't you look at me? Ms. Okita was hurt. You need to stick with the master to get it right. Su Mo, on the other hand, supported Suji Tian in the sick state, while looking at Ishtar in the sky. My favorite thing to do is to say no to people who think they are self-righteous. So, I reject both of your options. I want to choose the third way. After hearing his words, Ishtar asked curiously, this goddess didn't give you a third way. What do you want to do? Hearing this, Su Mo smiled. I want to pull some arrogant goddess off her throne and beat her up. In this case, no matter what kind of naughty child he is, he will probably become more well-behaved, right? The moment those words were spoken, which were no different from a declaration of war, the atmosphere suddenly froze. Hiss, you can be so brave in the face of a goddess. That's amazing. The King of Conquerors sighed as he watched the excitement and didn't mind the chaos. Weber showed an expression that was even uglier than crying. Then, that goddess seems to be really angry. Lancer watched the changes on the field with a silent expression. Without an order from his master, he decided to wait and see what would happen. And Ishtar is under the gaze of everyone. After hearing what Su Mo said, he showed a bright smile. Along with the bright smile, there was also a very cold, murderous intention. I understand. You just want to make me angry, right? In Ishtar's eyes full of anger, there was no one else except Su Mo want to beat me up and make me behave. Saying this, Ishtar made up his mind. I have decided that not only will I take you back to Uruk, I will also keep you by my side and torture you severely, until I make you unable to live without me. Then I will throw your soul into the underworld, let you be with the undead and skeletons all day long, and let you be imprisoned in the coldness and terror of Hades for 1,000 years. The only thing you did wrong was piss me off. Cold and cruel words came from the mouth of the goddess Ishtar. Punishment must not only be meted out to the sinner in front of you. His soul will also be thrown into the underworld and imprisoned for 1,000 years. Just hearing these words is enough to make humans tremble. Even a heroic spirit like the conquering king felt that this punishment was too severe. Among all the people present, only Su Mo was different. Hearing Ishtar's so-called punishment, his expression was very subtle. Being thrown into the underworld, perhaps the most severe punishment in other gods. But in Sumerian mythology, the goddess in charge of the underworld is Ele, one of the 4 girlfriends outside the shield. Compared to staying with Ishtar, I guess you won't get tired of spending 1,000 years with this little angel, Arai, right? If Su Mo wasn't here, there would be other girls to take care of. He really wanted to tell Ishtar, hurry up, I've wanted to see Elle for a long time. Ishtar saw Su Mo looking disapproving. Suddenly, I felt even more angry. But, fortunately, Ishtar didn't know what Su Mo was thinking. Otherwise, he would have been mad. Chapter 213, seeing Su Mo not crying without seeing the coffin. She raised her hand, ready to release her noble phantasm. The space trembled slightly. The huge fluctuations of magic power made all the followers look solemn. Everyone realized that there was something that does not belong to the human world, Afta, is about to appear before this terrifying magic wave reaches its peak. Ishtar looked at Su Mo in front of him and made his final declaration before the war began. Blasphemer, tell me your name before you fully experience my wrath. Su Mo. He didn't care about this request. Okay, I've written down this name. The word Su Mo will be deeply engraved in my heart. The goddess Ishtar was thoroughly prepared. Before waving, she seemed to feel something. I should have been able to cope with it at that time, right? He muttered this softly. Then, the willful goddess activated her noble phantasm regardless. Know the wrath of the mistress of heaven. This is the most powerful beast that can shake the earth. Gugalana strike. Bowl of heaven. This is the terrifying beast that once shaken the rule of Uruk. It is an existence that is more powerful than ordinary gods. A call to the power of the goddess. Resurrect the most powerful beast in Sumerian mythology. Boom! The atmosphere screamed. The ground began to shake. The entire port was crumbling, as if it was about to be destroyed. Even a servant of Lancer's level couldn't help but change his expression when he felt this power, and cause all this. But it was just the aftermath before the bowl of heaven appeared. Under the cloud-covered sky, only one extremely thick cow leg poked out. Hey, is this a joke? The conqueror looked shocked. Just one leg of the bowl of heaven can cause such a big movement. It can destroy almost an entire street. It is conceivable that if this mythical beast fully appeared, could it directly destroy a neighborhood or even an entire city? This is just showing up. No real attack was launched. Is this the power of gods? Weber was also shocked by this power. It's not just him. Lancer's master, Kenneth, was also frightened. Under the power of the divine beast, the power of the servants is nothing in comparison. If it weren't for the servants summoned by Kenneth, they would also be demigods. I'm afraid he's just about to give up. How can a mortal man defeat the power of God? Seeing everyone's horrified expressions, Ishtar was very satisfied. However, looking back, Su Mo still looked unconcerned. This made her make her final decision. Come out! With the call of the goddess. The bowl of heaven completely revealed his figure. The huge mythical beast may be as high as 100 meters. However, under the control of Ishtar, the bowl of heaven's figure has shrunk a bit to about 20 meters. Although it is still a huge thing, it will no longer interfere with the surrounding ordinary residential areas. This probably comes from Yolin's kind mentality, sitting high in the sky. At his feet is his strongest trump card, the bowl of heaven. Ishtar crossed his arms and looked at Su Mo below with a look of disdain. Now, even if Su Mo wants to beg for mercy from this goddess, I will not let you go. She expected to see Su Mo's regretful and broken expression, but he discovered that after witnessing the bowl of heaven, Su Mo's expression was as cold as ever. Looking at her, the supreme goddess, she seemed to be looking at some unrecyclable garbage. That's it. Su Mo spoke softly. Hiss. The conquering king took a breath. He sucked in so much cold air that it made the temperature in the port a little hotter. How could this master, named Su Mo, still have such confidence in the face of such a divine beast? He really started to admire Su Mo. If nothing else, even if he just wanted to die looking good. Based on this mentality, the Conqueror King felt that he was definitely a guy who could do great things. "You damn duck has a tough mouth," Ishtar sneered. "I don't think the man in front of me really has the confidence to fight against the Bull of Heaven. Although it's a bit embarrassing to say. But you must know that even she herself cannot defeat this divine beast. The fighting power far exceeds that of ordinary gods. It would be amazing for a mere human being to be able to block gem magic. Want to defeat the mythical beast alone? Not even that guy, Gene Shining, can do it. In this era when the gods are far away, how can there be a power that can resist the Bull of Heaven?" 180 punished the arrogant goddess looking at the huge mythical beast in front of me. The Bull of the Sky. Su Mo thought for a moment. To deal with cattle, just use wild boar. He muttered this. He raised his left hand slightly. The magical power that overcame the dragon's veins exploded at this moment. The unparalleled momentum made everyone look at him. People have always thought that he was a rare warrior of this era. It was only then that I finally discovered that this man named Su Mo was actually unfathomable. The martial arts he had displayed before were just the tip of the iceberg. The halo of the gods appeared here. Su Mo chose the power of Velaslana. After activating the power, behind him appeared a majesty that only gods and Buddhas could have. Above the holy and majestic majesty, the ancient Persian gods' words and mysterious patterns appeared. That was the manifestation of Velaslana's divinity. "If I am a person with sharp teeth that is difficult to approach, then obey my words and give you destruction." After a short chant, the earth suddenly turned into a dark swamp. A huge boar, a 20-meter-tall mythical beast, rose from the swamp. The wild boar incarnation from Velaslana's power, god of war in the east, was summoned. If it was before, the words to summon the wild boar should be, "Obey the Lord's words and give you destruction." Velaslana's words always emphasize that he is a warrior who protects light and Mithras. He always emphasizes Mithras' status. However, since Su Mo defeated Perseus and obtained Mithras' power, this word is naturally changed. The warrior godhood that protects Mithras and Mithras' own godhood are superimposed on each other. The powers of both sides complement each other, and both are enhanced. The words that originally emphasized the existence of the master have become words that emphasize their own existence. Chapter 214. Because Sumer holds the dual godheads of Mithras and Velaslana, both the guardian of light and the light itself. He is the Lord. Gaia, the dark mythical beast boar, roared loudly. His furious eyes stared at the bull in front of him. The hooves in front kept scratching the ground. Then, under Su Mo's order, boom! The mythical wild boar rushed towards the bull of heaven in front of it at a speed far exceeding the speed of sound. Same as the bull of heaven. The mythical beast boar also belongs to that exceptional type, whose combat power is superior to that of most subordinate gods. In terms of impact, it can even compete with the god king. So, face the bull of heaven. The mythical wild boar is full of violent fighting spirit, without any timidity. Bang! The mythical beast wild boar, which is specialized in impact force, directly pushed out the mythical beast sky bull, although it didn't cause much damage. But the two mythical beasts were already angry. A fight began at the port. The earth began to tremble and crack. The shock wave completely destroyed the port containers and the coast. Just the aftermath of the battle completely destroyed the entire surrounding area. Fortunately, this is a port, far away from residential areas. Otherwise, the figure of the mythical beast fighting will never be concealed. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned. It's like a fairy tale unfolding in front of you. Both the master and the servants looked a little dazed. It was as if I had returned to the age of the gods, when gods were still coexisting with humans on Earth. This was probably the scene. The violent beasts and humans are so close. That violent divine power is so powerful. It is easy to understand why in ancient times humans had to put their faith in gods. And after seeing that the bull of heaven that he summoned was actually stopped by the sacred beast wild boar summoned by the other party. The most shocking, it is Ishtar in the sky. She never expected that the man named Su Mo in front of her could actually summon a divine beast like herself. It's still that powerful beast. Are you a god? Ishtar could never mistake the majesty of a god that the other party had just shown. You actually don't rely on the followers, but come to the world in a human body? She looked at Su Mo in shock. How on earth did you do that? Facing Ishtar's doubts and misunderstandings, Su Mo was not surprised. The power possessed by the Godslayer includes the godhead corresponding to the god of disobedience. Every time you use power, you actually mobilize the power belonging to the corresponding god. In a world where there are no Godslayers, it is normal for people who wield the power of gods to be mistaken for gods. And the misunderstanding about Ishtar, Su Mo had no intention of patiently explaining to her. First, it's because it's too cumbersome to explain. Secondly, it's because you seem to have forgotten something? The corner of Su Mo's mouth curled up into a smile that made Ishtar feel uncomfortable. We are still at war, and I seem to have said that I would give you a good beating. So saying. Before Ishtar had time to react, Su Mo jumped lightly. The incarnation of the wild boar not only possesses the impact force powerful enough to rush from the earth to the moon. At the same time, the master, Su Mo, will also be given the same level of thrust speed as himself. Therefore, Su Mo came behind the goddess Ishtar in just the blink of an eye. At this time, he was still holding Okita in his left hand. Kill the girl in your arms. The freed right hand aimed directly at a certain part of the goddess Ishtar. He whipped it hard. The naughty kid just needs to be spanked. So saying. Crack! The crisp sound resounded throughout the port. After hearing this voice, everyone was stunned. What did they see? This man actually spanked the goddess? Sounds so cool. But this guy is really brave. Isn't he afraid of being chased to death by this goddess? And above the sky, after being spanked, Ishtar did not immediately fall into a state of anger, as others thought. Instead, he stayed on the spot, dazed for several seconds. She was beaten? Anyone dare to hit her? And was it his own, but that he was spanking? Ishtar, who had never experienced anything like this before, felt as if a string had been cut in her head. Zope asked for flowers. Zero, after thinking for a long time, I realized what happened to me. She couldn't help but cover her back. Then his eyes turned red, and tears could be vaguely seen. How could someone offend a noble goddess like her? Not even her father dared to hit her like this. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Su Mo, you are dead. Accompanied by unparalleled anger, Ishtar finally got mad. She etched the name deeply into her bones, ready to crush it into ashes. The furious goddess tightened her grip on Ma Anna beside her. When I was about to do something, crack! Another crisp slap. What came at the same time as the burning pain was the other party's mocking voice. Is this incompetent rage? TSK, TSK. Ishtar's sanity went offline. She swears. This man named Su Mo must be cut into pieces. Then, make an adult doll and step on it with your feet every day. In the end, he was thrown into the abyss of the underworld, imprisoned for 10,000 years. No, 100,000 years. Ishtar, extremely angry, summoned all the magic power in her body. Crush him, Bull of Heaven. He gave orders to the divine beast he summoned. Following the words of the goddess, the spirit fell to the ground. The Bull of Heaven seemed to have been strengthened, exerting unparalleled fighting power. Even the mythical wild boar couldn't resist it for a while. Su Mo didn't panic at all. Oh, you who bear sharp fangs. Kill him with one blow and trample him to pieces. He can also do things like additional chanting. Recite along with this word spirit. Green flames appeared on the body of the mythical wild boar, and its attack power was greatly increased. Chapter 2:15 Fighting with the Bull of Heaven again. What? Unexpectedly, the Bull of Heaven, who had unleashed his power, still couldn't stop the opponent. Ishtar was stunned and heard a familiar voice again. Crack! The same humiliation was meted out 3 times. She couldn't bear it anymore. The bull of heaven is completely hopeless. But as the most beloved goddess, she has more than just this power. Ma'onno. She called out to the divine tool at her feet in a loud voice full of anger. Tianzoma Anna listened to the call and opened her realm gate. From the realm gate, you can see images of the universe and starry sky. That's a star map near Venus. The furious goddess ignored her and used the attack that once destroyed the spiritual peak that was revered by all the gods. At this moment, she felt the resistance from her master. Silly Tokiomi, don't stop me. The goddess Ishtar roared loudly. With her A-level magic resistance, a mere command spell would be ineffective. However, this roar had no effect. It seemed that he sensed some irresistible force. Knowing that she couldn't stay any longer, Ishtar glared at Su Mo angrily. Your life will be decided by this goddess. Don't think this counts as a win. Then, the goddess who said the cruel words turned into golden particles and disappeared from the place as the space fluctuated. 181 Tosaka, Tokiomi suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, and young Rin gradually understood everything. Looking at the place where the goddess Ishtar disappeared, the golden light particles disappeared together with the bull of heaven. The astonished Iskandar couldn't help but sigh. It's like a myth reappearing. Under him, Webb was crying and had completely lost hope. I heard that the Holy Grail War involves fighting servants, but I've never heard of goddesses and gods joining in. This kind of opponent is too foul. It's impossible to win. The young magician was in despair. The opponent is Kenneth, who can barely muster the courage. The opponent is a god, let alone him. Teacher Kenneth will probably be scared to death. Even if you can't win, there is still a time when you have to compete. This is the heroic spirit. The conquering king smiled boldly and comforted his master. This time, he did not deny the fact that he might not be able to win at all. No matter it is the goddess, just now, it's still Su Mo who beats away the goddesses. Those were forces beyond his ability to cope with, and could even be said to be beyond the scope of human beings. As a human being, we can only express admiration for the power of gods. But if it were Mr. Su Mo, we might never win. The Conqueror King touched his chin and expressed his judgment. But 327, that goddess is not necessarily the case. If it is really the true form of the god who has descended, he should not have the power to resist the command spell. And just now, although the goddess was able to resist, she was forcibly transferred by her master in the end. In other words, the goddess's own state is not in her prime. Lancer's master was a little surprised when he heard his analysis. I didn't expect that such a tall and powerful servant could have such keen eyesight. However, for what he said, Ryder's master disagreed. Ryder, even if that goddess is not in her prime, she is definitely stronger than most servants. The gem magic that was thrown casually before is equivalent to the power of the noble phantasm. Not to mention, the combat effectiveness of the mythical beast summoned by the other party is not compromised at all. With the power of the servants, there is no way to deal with that mythical beast. Weber was frightened and analyzed the current situation very methodically. Hearing this, the Conqueror King showed admiration. Weber has the qualifications to become a military advisor. But that's not the point right now. But the content of his words. Recalling the gem magic that had been a bit difficult for him to deal with before, the Conqueror King nodded. Indeed, the goddess herself is very troublesome. Not to mention that terrifying beast. Having said this, everyone couldn't help but look at the battlefield of divine beasts not far away. The huge port has been completely turned into ruins. The earth was plowed into bottomless ravines. The far coast was also completely devastated. The fight lasted for less than half a minute, and the aftermath of the battle between the two divine beasts almost destroyed an area. This is a battle where both sides deliberately control the situation and try not to affect ordinary people. Otherwise, the entire city will be burned to the ground. Such destructive power. To be honest, Iskandar felt that even if he used the EX-level noble phantasm, King's military strength, it is estimated that with the power of the United Army, it is absolutely impossible to defeat them. That is not something humanly possible, but the boat will be straight when it reaches the bridge. There will always be a way. The conquering king, who had a plan in mind, patted Weber on the shoulder, looking optimistic. This caused Weber to yell again. After the analysis is completed, the conquering king didn't care about the goddess who had left. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Lancer, whom he had always cared about before. The red-haired man scratched his head. Looking at this guy with golden armor, he showed extremely terrifying combat power from the very beginning. He finally asked the question he had wanted to ask for a long time. Lancer, even if Mr. Su Mo is so powerful that it makes you despair. But as a servant, you should have your own self-respect, right? A few words of foreshadowing. The conquering king asked directly, "Why are you kneeling on the ground?" His question was exactly what Waver and Lancer's masters also wanted to ask before, because I was more concerned about the war between the goddess and the living gods. So everyone subconsciously ignored Lancer. After recovering from that mythical battle, everyone discovered it. The taciturn, extremely powerful Lancer with the golden brilliance of the sun. Unexpectedly, he knelt down in front of Su Mo without knowing when. His expression was very respectful. "Are you scared to your knees?" Everyone was very confused. Time goes back 10 minutes. Tosaka residence. Naturally, Tokiomi Tosaka immediately noticed the provocative message sent by Lancer. As a local snake, he has enough familiars to monitor the battlefield. Realize that this will be the beginning of the battle. Tokiomi Tosaka immediately began monitoring the scene. In fact, as a master, he and his servants have a common magic circuit. Sharing the 5 senses of the followers is the most convenient means of detection. It's a pity that the willful servant who calls herself the goddess will not agree to this kind of thing. Tokiomi Tosaka once made this request. The response I got was, "Silly pie, do you want to die?" Chapter 216 Tosaka, Tokiomi, stopped talking and dared not mention it again. This is the most difficult part of facing this servant. That goddess is too foul-mouthed. If it was just like this, it would be fine, with his adult man's temperament. As long as the servant is reliable, it is okay to be called a miscellaneous cultivator by the servant every day. In order to reach the root, what is the point of enduring this insult? However, what really made him a little bit unbearable, it was that this goddess used her daughter's body to scold him. As a middle-aged man, the dignity that he cares most about in addition to the face of a magician. Naturally, it is the dignity in front of his wife and daughter. However, this point was directly destroyed by Ishtar. Being scolded by his daughter like a grandson every day. Even Buddha has anger. And if it was just like this, he can still tolerate it. What he can't tolerate at all is, recently he discovered his daughter, the cute daughter who has always been well-behaved and obedient to Osaka Rin. Recently, it seems to have been infected by Ishtar. Occasionally, when talking, he would naturally blurt out a word to Tosaka Tokiomi, "Idiot." That's fine. He can still tolerate it. What he really can't tolerate is his own reaction. After being called idiot by his own daughter, Tosaka Tokiomi knelt down as if by reflex and asked for forgiveness from the goddess Ishtar. He still remembered when he looked up the expression on his daughter Tosaka Rin's little face. From the panic of saying the wrong thing, to the confusion of kneeling down to his father, to the confusion about the current situation, to a trace of unspeakable joy zero. Tosaka Tokiomi didn't know what his daughter thought of. But to this day, he still remembers the expression that Rin showed at the end. "Ah, I have gradually understood everything." From that day on, Tosaka Tokiomi always felt. Sometimes it was not Ishtar who scolded him, but his daughter Rin. But even if he noticed the clues, he didn't dare to say it, nor did he dare to ask. He knew that if he questioned her back, it would definitely be Ishtar who would take over the body again. Thinking of this, the middle-aged father's eyes were filled with tears. He was scolded by his own daughter every day, but he didn't dare to talk back. Is there anyone worse than him? Tosaka Tokiomi sighed deeply. The recent experience was too tragic. Even if it was just a memory, he couldn't hold it. But fortunately, the Holy Grail War has begun. When the Holy Grail War is over and the goddess leaves, he can return to his original happy life. Thinking of this, he began to watch the scenes happening in the port through his familiars. At first, it was the battle between Lancer and Saber, although the intensity seemed to exceed the normal level of the Holy Grail War. But with the existence of a suspected goddess on his side, Tosaka Tokiomi was not panicked at all. Then, Ryder's appearance was a bit unexpected, but Tosaka Tokiomi was still not panicked. This guy who revealed his real name at the beginning is no match for Ishtar. It is better to wait for them to kill each other. I can reap the benefits. With this thought, he immediately heard that Ryder actually used provocation to mock everyone. At this time, Tosaka Tokiomi was completely panicked. That arrogant goddess would definitely not be able to stand provocation. She would definitely show up. This is completely inconsistent with the strategy of hiding that Tosaka Tokiomi had formulated. This is not a big deal. It's okay to expose part of your strength. The key issue is, you are using my daughter's body. If anything happens to you, Rin will be buried with you. Tosaka Tokiomi is not naive enough to think that 3.0 is the limit. If Ishtar is defeated, other servants will let go of her daughter, who is possessed by her. Fortunately, although Ishtar has a bad personality, her strength is indeed impeccable. A gem magic was smashed down. The servants retreated one after another. Ryder almost couldn't take it. Seeing this, Tosaka Tokiomi, who was proud of his family's powerful gem magic, suddenly froze his smile. Wait, where did Ishtar's gems come from? He didn't remember giving her gems. And why did those gems look so familiar? No way. An ominous premonition flashed through Tosaka Tokiomi's mind. He ran all the way to the basement and opened his box sealed with multiple barriers. Then, as expected, he found that this treasure chest that should have stored his years of accumulation was empty. Only the small gems that Ishtar didn't like were left here. All the big ones were taken away. Fuck you. Seeing the empty box, Tosaka Tokiomi, who had always tried to remain elegant. Finally, for the first time, he couldn't help but swear. Is this what a human would do? The accumulation of several generations of the Tosaka family was all emptied by her alone. Tosaka Tokiomi was about to have a cerebral hemorrhage. 182, the god of war Emperor Shirtian is coming. All my life savings were gone. They turned into fireworks blooming in the hands of the goddess Ishtar. Tokiomi Tosaka, who confirmed this, returned from the basement. See the scene of Ishtar killing everyone again. There was no pride in his eyes, only distress and anger. Prodigal girl. Those are all the savings of the Tosaka family. Unfortunately, no one could make her stop. Tokiomi Tosaka himself was timid. However, cowardice is cowardice. Tokiomi Tosaka is still human after all. There is still some anger that should be there. His anger at this willful goddess made him begin to pray. Can you give this guy a natural punishment to make her understand the cruelty of the world? Tokiomi Tosaka thought this way. I saw the conflict between Ishtar and the Master of Saber. I saw both sides using divine beasts to attack each other at the same time. Then I saw Sumo slap. Crack! Very crisp and very loud. Does it sound good? What sounds good is a good slap. Well done. Tokiomi Tosaka couldn't help but blurt it out. Chapter 2:17 hit. Hit hit. He had long wanted to see someone teach this proud goddess a lesson. Do it again. Tokiomi Tosaka was excited. Originally, he was not such an irrational person. However, all the gems passed down from his family were gone, which dealt a huge blow to his spirit. Said it was a family tradition. In fact, the Tosaka family was in a state of decline before him. It was only thanks to the efforts of Tokiomi Tosaka that he was able to stand up and return to the current scale. These heirloom gems, most of it was accumulated by him alone. However, it is difficult to prevent 05 thieves by day and night. Having lost all his savings, he was temporarily given the evaporation of reason buff. Saw Ishtar being beaten. He couldn't care about anything else. Just happy. However, while encouraging Su Mo like this, Tokiomi Tosaka forgot one thing. He watched the footage from home. The familiar's information is directly projected on the screen in front of him and can be directly seen by human eyes. But his wife did not leave. So, Tokiomi, a faint call came from behind. His wife Tosaka Aoi looked at him with a very incomprehensible look. She pursed her lips and hesitated before speaking. Even if Ishtar's attitude is indeed bad, that body is Rin's body after all. As a father, seeing Rin being beaten, is it really okay for you to behave like this? Tosaka Aoi understands her husband's resentment towards Ishtar. But no matter what, it is still my daughter's body. As a mother, it's natural to worry. Moreover, although Ishtar treated Tosaka Tokiomi badly, his attitude towards her was quite kind. Therefore, Tosaka Aoi actually likes Ishtar quite a bit. Ahem. Unexpectedly, he was accidentally discovered by his wife. Tokiomi Tosaka couldn't help but clear his throat and immediately returned to his usual dignified state. I see, he said in a deep voice. At this time, the situation on the battlefield has indeed reached a point where it is impossible not to intervene. The master named Su Mo, who is suspected to be a living god, has hit Ishtar 3 times. Ishtar didn't react even once. In other words, if the other party has murderous intentions, Ishtar might have died on the spot. Realizing this, Tosaka Tokiomi's expression became serious. No matter how much I disagree with Ishtar, after all, it is my daughter's body. Everything is about safety. If the stalemate continues between the two sides, Tokiomi Tosaka didn't even think about recalling Ishtar. After all, he hasn't figured out the other party's identity yet, so there's no danger for the time being anyway. He has absolutely no idea of letting this goddess get spanked a few more times. Tosaka Tokiomi, you can swear to God. However, I saw that Ishtar wanted to use some killing move. Tokiomi Tosaka couldn't sit still. The current situation was obvious to him as a bystander. Ishtar summons the Bull of Heaven. Enemies can summon the mythical beast boar. The mythical beasts on both sides are evenly matched. In the subsequent battle, although I don't know why, the opponent had no obvious killing intent. But if Ishtar continues to use his killing moves, if the opponent also uses a killing move, he couldn't guarantee that this time it would be evenly matched. With the degree of flexibility shown by the opponent, he will definitely not lose to Ishtar. If the opponent's ultimate move is stronger, it is very possible that he will be too late to recall Ishtar. For the sake of his daughter's life, Tokiomi Tosaka made a prompt decision and issued the order using the command seal. Then, I heard the goddess's reply. You idiot Tokiomi! Don't stop me! After Tosaka Tokiomi heard this, veins appeared on his forehead. He immediately used the second command spell. Even though Ishtar had A-level magic resistance, she couldn't withstand the same command from 2 command seals. Unwilling to give in, she was directly transferred back by Tokiomi's space. Then, the goddess of beauty, harvest, and battle took her anger out on the master. Silly pie, I will fight with you. In the end, Tokiomi Tosaka was beaten violently. Only then did the Tosaka family return to its former peace. It's really gratifying. In the harbor below the Mayan River Bridge. At this time, Ishtar had just left. The Conqueror King asked the Lancer in front of him, "Why are you kneeling on the ground?" Lancer ignored him. Instead, he looked at Su Mo with respect. "The great Emperor of Heaven, the great God Indra, please allow me to pay you the highest respect. Due to the Master's order, I cannot reveal my identity, but my respect is absolutely not false at all." Lancer knelt on the ground with a very sincere attitude. If the servant kneels down, just words that surprised them. The words from Lancer's mouth shocked everyone present. What? Indra? Weber's eyes widened. Even though he is a Westerner, he has heard of this powerful god in Hinduism and Buddhism. Indra's status in these 2 religions is no less than that of Thor, the god of thunder in Norse mythology. The King of Conquerors pondered for a moment and was also surprised. According to the common sense of the Holy Grail, Indra is the god called Indra, right? That is the main god of war, and god of war in mythology. Although the identity of the man in front of him had been confirmed before, he was suspected to be a god living in the world. But gods also have different levels. The so-called 8 million gods of this land under his feet are a bunch of mountain spirits and wild monsters. Most of them are just hairy gods. No one thought that the god in front of them would be their famous god. No wonder he can easily defeat the goddess Ishtar. Ishtar is also one of the main gods. The King of Conquerors nodded suddenly. If it is this god of war and the god of victory, It can indeed be done. I understand. Everything is understood. No wonder Su Mo's martial arts are so strong. And his strength can also beat Ishtar, the mistress of the sky. It turns out that he is the god of war Indra. In this way, everything can be explained. He gradually understood everything. Hearing the king of conquerors' analysis, Lancer's master, Kenneth, was also convinced. For some reason, he asked loudly using amplification magic, "Lancer, is this god really Indra?" To this question, Lancer gave an unwavering answer. "That's right, master." Chapter 2:18, The Majesty of the God. Once seen, you will never make a mistake. That is definitely the godhood of Indra, the Emperor of Heaven. I didn't recognize it before when it was not revealed. I am really ashamed. Hearing Lancer's firm tone, the crowd who admired the servant's courage to kneel down no longer had any doubts in their hearts. They all believed his words. Even Okita Tsuji raised his head with some curiosity. The master's true identity turned out to be Indra? Hearing this question, Suemo looked at Lancer speechlessly. "You said you would never make a mistake? You must be blind." Although he said so, but Suemo actually understood the reason for Lancer's behavior. What he just revealed was the godhood of Velaslana. Velaslana was a Zoroastrian god in ancient Persia. Ancient Persia was located in the civilization area of West Asia, and with the migration of the Aryans, the myths of the Aryans gradually affected other areas. The legend of Mithras in Rome overlapped with the images of Helios and Perseus in Greek mythology. This is why Suemo killed Perseus but got the power of Mithras. The legend of Velaslana in ancient India gradually evolved into Indra, the Emperor of Heaven, or translated as Indra. Of course, it also mixed with the legend of Indra, the evil god of Zoroastrianism. This aspect is too complicated and will not be expanded for the time being. In short, Velaslana and Indra are gods of the same origin. It is normal to recognize Velaslana as Indra when seeing him. However, Suemo does not want to accept this title. "You recognize the wrong one. I am not the shameful guy Indra. It would be fine if he was recognized as another god. It happened to be Indra. The record of this martial god is indeed outstanding, and his name is indeed loud. However, as loud as his name is his black history. In addition to some things that simply cannot pass the review, what this guy did to Lancer is very unworthy of the title of God of War. Suemo is not going to admit that he is this shameless guy. The godhead you mistakenly recognized is not from Emperor Shirtion, but from the Zoroastrian god of war Velaslana. Suemo said very seriously. However, after hearing his words, Lancer just raised his head in confusion. "But Velaslana, isn't that your previous name? Gone? Could it be that there are also Ves everywhere in the Type Moon world? Or, in the age of gods of Type Moon, Emperor Shirtion really defected from Zoroastrianism to Hinduism? This is not impossible. After all, Emperor Shirtion also has the inheritance of betrayal, of the evil god of Zoroastrianism. With treason as the core, he is destined to jump from his own pantheon to another pantheon. So, even if it is not the situation of Ves everywhere in the world of Godslayer, given the special nature of Indra, it is possible that he holds the position of a god from several pantheons. 183 Conqueror King joins forces. Miss Okita feels wronged, whatever you think, but I'm not that guy. Suemo shook his head. So, Karna, son of Surya, you don't need to be so respectful to me. He pointed out the name of the servant in front of him. The son of the sun god Surya, one of the three golden targets, the top servant known as the Little Sun. The hero of Charity Karna. The golden armor on his body, which can weaken all attacks to 1/10 of the treasure, is a gift from his father. Hearing him say this name, although it was expected, Lancer's master still felt a little troublesome. The true name of the servant has always been something that should be kept secret. Although Karna has no fatal weaknesses, he also carries a curse. It would be better if he could keep it secret. But fortunately, he announced the title of the god in front of him to everyone in advance. No matter how strong Karna is, he is still a demigod. He will not be the first target of everyone. Compared with him, the war god Indra and the goddess Ishtar are the ones who should be targeted. As for Sumo's previous denial, Kenneth only thought that the gods wanted to conceal their identities. He believed that his servants would never mistake the gods of his own pantheon, especially Indra, who has a deep connection with Karna. On the other side, the king of conquerors smiled bitterly. Even with his courage, he never thought that the Holy Grail War would be such a scene. I thought it would be an exchange of heroes across time and space. I didn't expect that the Holy Grail War would be far beyond my imagination and directly become the return of the Age of Gods. War god Indra, goddess of Venus Ishtar, son of the sun, god Karna. This rough, red-haired man touched his head and sighed. God King, Lord God, demigod, all of them are existences in mythology. How can we ordinary humans survive if you do this? The king of conquerors can say that he is just an ordinary human. The extent of the fight between gods in this Holy Grail War can be seen. At this point, the king of conquerors glanced at Okita Tsuji in Sumo's arms, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Saber is here, which makes me feel that I am not an anomaly. He really felt relieved. I saw Okita Tsuji's exquisite martial arts before, but he was affected by the curse of sickness. So after fighting for a while, he rushed to the street. At that time, he felt it was a pity, a dignified warrior, but burdened by illness. Such a shame. However, after seeing the battle between Sumer and Ishtar, now he feels that Saber behaves like a human being. Make him feel that he is not so out of place. His words also gave others a lot of emotion. Both Kenneth and Tokiomi Tosaka felt that they had won after summoning the servants. However, they never expected that the quality of the servants in this Holy Grail War would be so high, and that there would actually be a living god of war. This is outrageous. And among everyone, after hearing what the King of Conquerors said, the only person who felt dissatisfied was Saber herself. What do you mean it's good that I'm here? Saber Sakura puffed up her cheeks, and the dull hair on her head stood up. I know you just want to say that I am good, right? You just want to say that I am useless, right? I also want to protect Master, and I also want to help Master defeat powerful enemies. But the Master is stronger than me. What can I do? I am also desperate. It's so illegal to directly awaken God-level power. I can't catch up even if I want to. Master is so strong. What use do I have? Woo woo woo. Okita Tsuji, who was stabbed by the conquering king, hugged Su Mo with his mouth flat and cried out in grievance. The dull hair on the top of the head is also a little sluggish. Seeing her like this, the other servants all looked at her with understanding and pity. Being summoned by a living god is naturally a good thing. But if the master is too strong, it will also make the servants feel frustrated. As heroic spirits, they also have their own pride. But if this pride is placed in front of gods, it is really not worth mentioning. Suemo also didn't expect that Tsuji Okita would accumulate so much psychological pressure. It seemed that today's defeat and 2 attacks on the street had left a psychological shadow on her. After all, he was rushing to the street at the critical moment of being cool. As a girl, it's impossible not to care. So, he comforted Okita Tsuji, who was lying on top of him and crying loudly. On the other hand, he was thinking about finding a way to remove the sickness curse from Okita. Otherwise, if it continues like this, it will be difficult to reassure him. Tsuji Okita interrupted. The atmosphere on the battlefield became much more relaxed. Originally, these servants and masters were still worried. After the goddess Ishtar left, would the god of war just kill them all? But now, look at Saber like this. It really doesn't look like the atmosphere to continue fighting. Chapter 219, on the other side, Karna, who was kneeling on the ground, still didn't get up. King of the gods, although you refuse me to call you the name of God. However, I came here and swore an oath to win the Holy Grail War for the Master. So, please forgive me for my sins and my transgression against you. For this, I am willing to accept your punishment. As the Son of God, he raised his blade against the King of Gods. It is indeed inconsistent with etiquette. However, the current positions of both parties are inherently hostile. Karna also swore to his master that he would win. Therefore, he had to be hostile to Indra, the god of war. As a hero, he cannot break his oath. As a son of God, he doesn't want to rebel against the God King. That's why he made such a request, hoping that the God King in front of him would allow his transgression. Even if Su Mo punishes him, he is willing to do so. What a loyal warrior! The conquering king struck the festival with praise. Karna's master, Kenneth, was also very moved. Because of the myths and legends, he trusted Karna very much. But he never thought that this charity hero could do this for him. Even if he is the enemy of the king of gods, he will not hesitate. Except for being a little silly, it's perfect in every way. Kenneth thought so. In his opinion, since he has chosen hostility, he will remain hostile to the end. Why should we accept the other party's punishment? Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? As a magician, he could not understand the persistence of a hero. And in the middle of the battlefield, seeing Karna's defenseless apology gesture, Su Mo just waved his hand. Not to mention that I am not Indra. Even if I am, there is nothing to blame in fighting the enemy. We are enemies to begin with. Fighting with swords is the principle of a warrior. There is no arrogance. As a noble hero, you should fulfill your oath. So get up quickly. I forgive you. Su Mo had no ill feelings towards a rigid but noble warrior like Karna. Naturally, he would not really want to punish Karna. With his strength, there is no need to do this even to win. That would be too petty. Therefore, he directly pardoned the other party. Hear him say that. Karna looked grateful. Thank you, God, for your mercy, not to mention the encounters and myths. He admired the martial god Indra in front of him very much. Not only did he forgive his rudeness, but he also called himself a noble hero and admitted that he was born of God the Father. This person is so sure. Even in Karna's state of mind, he couldn't help but feel the pleasure of being praised by his elders. A little bit happy, obviously the enemy. The atmosphere at this moment is quite good. This time, the Conqueror King, who had been waiting for a long time, began to interrupt. Excuse me, have you finished talking with this demigod hero? If we're done talking, I have something to discuss here. The Conqueror King showed a straightforward smile and looked at the two of them with a little caution. When facing a god-level existence, it is impossible not to be cautious. We're done. Writer, what do you want to say? Karna glanced at Sumer, and after seeing that he had no objection, he looked at the conquering king in front of him. The conquering king rubbed his hands and showed a simple smile. Lancer, should we join forces? Then he made suggestions that no one could ignore. Join forces. Lancer wasn't surprised when he heard this, but it was a little strange that the conqueror chose this moment to discuss this. Yes, Iskandar nodded. The enemy in this Holy Grail war is far more powerful than we imagined. Whether it is a goddess or a god, they are almost invincible opponents. In this case, if we weaklings don't join forces, we will only be defeated one by one, right? Unlike his rugged appearance, the Conqueror is actually the type who is proficient in strategy. Coupled with his consistent style, he realized, that there were so many powerful beings standing in front of him. The first thing he thought of was to use the power of everyone to deal with the gods. As a demigod hero, not to mention powerful, Lancer is a very suitable candidate for alliance. It may be impossible to deal with the martial god Emperor Shirtion. However, if they operate well, it is not difficult to deal with the goddess Ishtar. The power of the goddess Ishtar, in addition to gem magic. What was displayed was the divine beast, the bull of heaven, and the move that was blocked in the middle of being launched. Gem magic has no effect on Lancer. As for the mythical beast, the bull of heaven, the conquering king was unable to defeat it. But relying on the inherent enchantment, it is still possible to trap the divine beast for a few minutes. If Lancer is allowed to take advantage of this moment to fight the goddess Ishtar, who has lost his biggest trump card, the winning rate is surprisingly high. The King of Conquerors decided on this plan and invited Lancer. It is best to unite with Ishtar to deal with Su Mo first. Then join forces with Karna to deal with the land of Ishtar. Just lower the difficulty step by step. Only then can he get closer to victory. However, he remembered his words that angered the goddess before. The King of Conquerors did not think that there was any possibility of an alliance with Ishtar. That's why he took the initiative to find Karna. 184 Ilya. Daddy really loves me hearing the words of the King of Conquerors. Lancer had no time to react. Su Mo spoke with a smile, discussing how to deal with me in front of me. Writer, Your boldness is beyond my expectation. Could it be that you want to anger me directly because you have no hope of winning and want to return to the throne of heroes as soon as possible? Although he did not intend to let the two of them leave, but depending on the words of the King of Conquerors, Su Mo would change his approach. Anyway, even if Ishtar and Karna, two out-of-spec servants, appeared, the Holy Grail War is still a fishpond game for him. Kill indiscriminately. Hearing Su Mo's words, even though he was joking, the King of Conquerors did not dare to treat him casually with a joking attitude. This is a god who has the power of life and death. If you want to defeat him, you can't make mistakes at the key points. Of course, I don't want to anger His Majesty the God King. The King of Conquerors immediately shook his head to express his opinion. However, a war without suspense is meaningless. If we form an alliance, this Holy Grail War will at least have some twists and turns. For you, if we just wait to be killed, you will also find it boring, right? With a very frank attitude, the King of Conquerors did not hide his intentions. The reason why he chose to say this in front of Su Mo was to bet on the courage of this god of war. If the Lord of War did not express his opinion on this, at least their chances of winning could be increased by 10%. Chapter 220 otherwise, no matter how sophisticated the plan is, if His Majesty interferes casually during the execution of the plan, it will be scrapped. For them, Su Mo's existence is so terrible. So much so that his attitude alone is enough to affect the outcome of the Holy Grail War. Hearing the words of the King of Conquerors 3:27, Su Mo showed a playful smile. From what you said, if you want to have fun in the Holy Grail War, I think I should allow you to form an alliance. That sounds reasonable. As he said, at the moment when the King of Conquerors and Waver showed joy on their faces, Su Mo changed his tone. But I refuse. He had a wicked smile on his face. My favorite thing to do is to say no to those who think things will develop as they expect. Originally, I didn't want to enjoy any fun in the Holy Grail War. Not to mention, I'm not that stupid war god at all. So as he said this, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Why don't you play by the rules? The King of Conquerors wailed in his heart, but he clenched his weapons tightly in his hands. Just when the King of Conquerors and Karna were ready to fight to the death, above the sky, suddenly, a woman's exclamation sounded. Wow, is this flying? So amazing. Ha ha ha. Correction. It was indeed an exclamation, but in fact, it was a cry of surprise. Then, the voice of a more childish little girl sounded. Mama Ellie, I found it. Everyone looked up. Then they saw a cute little girl dressed as a magical girl. She was flying down with a mature woman with white hair and red eyes. The two people who suddenly broke and found the people at the port. They landed quickly. A mature woman with white hair and red eyes, who looked only 18 or 19 years old. A girl with white hair and red eyes, who looked only about 10 years old in elementary school. This pair of people didn't look like combatants at all. On the contrary, they looked like mother and daughter or sisters who went out for a winter trip. However, the people who witnessed the two people flying would never regard them as ordinary people. That flying speed must be either a servant or a magician. The King of Conquerors was also confused by this sudden development. Kenneth, however, recognized this iconic feature. White hair and red eyes. A homunculus from the Einsburn family. He had a basic understanding of the information about the three great families. His judgment was correct. The one who suddenly landed was the master and servant from the Einsburn family. If it is not counted as flying, this is the first time that Irisveal has experienced flying in her life. For her, with a childlike heart, this experience is not only not scary, but also quite interesting. After coming down from the sky, she still grabbed her servant like a child. Castor, this is amazing. Let's do it again later. It seems that she is a little addicted to high-speed flying. While having fun, she also remembered to conceal the real name of her servant. It shows that Irisveal is still very reliable in business. Although, even if Ilia's real name is not concealed, no one can recognize it. And hearing her words, the King of Conquerors' eyes lit up. Castor, although I don't know why this young girl will be the caster in this Holy Grail War. But this is not important. What is important is that Castor looks and has aura, and does not look like a god. And anyone who is not a god may be his ally. facing enemies like the goddess Ishtar and the god of war Indra. All other servants are in a weak position and are naturally on the same front. Therefore, the possibility of being recruited is very high. Therefore, the King of Conquerors was about to speak and extend an olive branch to Castor. Expand his human front alliance by 1 point. Do you want to form a team with us? As soon as this sentence came out, he saw that petite, little girl like Castor wearing very cute clothes, like a young swallow flying into the forest, throwing into Su Mo's arms. Then he called sweetly, "Dad, I finally found you." Hearing this, the King of Conquerors was silent. Weber was also silent. Miss Okita was also silent. Irisveel's smile was a little awkward, but she had expected this scene. And like everyone else, Su Mo was also a little confused. Suddenly, a pink loli called him Dad. He was just surprised. However, in addition to being surprised, Su Mo also recognized her identity when he saw the little girl's dress. "Isn't this Ilya?" He shouted in confusion. And in front of him, hearing Su Mo blurt out his name, Ilya's eyes sparkled. Then she hugged Su Mo tighter, rubbing hard. Sure enough, Irisveel's mother is a fool. I knew it. Daddy must remember Ilya. Although I don't know why Daddy recognized me before I was born. But this is not important. The important thing is that Ilya was recognized by Daddy. This is very happy. Ilya is very happy, but the King of Conquerors is very unhappy. Finally, a servant came, and it turned out to be the other party's daughter. Could it be another goddess-level figure? Although it doesn't look like it. But even if Castor is not a goddess, she is also the companion of His Majesty. There are 7 servants in the Holy Grail War, and 1 is missing. In other words, the position that should have become his ally is also missing. This is not a good thing. However, now is not the time to think about this. Seeing Castor hugging Su Mo with a happy face, when he was acting coquettishly intimately, the King of Conquerors was very considerate and pulled waiver. He shouted softly, "Then we won't disturb the reunion of the father and daughter of the Lord God King." After saying that, he pulled his master and ran away. Run away. Chapter 2:21 Lancer's master was just as cunning as him. Then, after Lancer bid farewell again, sincerely, they left immediately. On the battlefield at the port, only the Saber team and the Castor team were left, looking at Ilya, who took her place and kept acting cute to her master. Okita Suji didn't feel that he was being NT, common sense in her era. Monogamy was not required. This was especially true for the strong. Not to mention, Ilya was only a 10-year-old child. So, compared to these, she cared more about another point. Master's daughter? She looked at Ilya blankly, and then at Su Mo blankly. Miss Okita showed an unbelievable look. Master is only 16 or 17 years old. Why does he have such a big daughter? Su Mo in the Type Moon world is still in his teenage years. At his age, if he wants to have a 10-year-old daughter. In other words, when he was 6 or 7 years old, he would be a father. After realizing this, with a look of horror, Okita Suji looked at Castor's master not far away. That is, the woman who is called Irisveel's mother. You actually attacked a master when he was 6 or 7 years old? Miss Okita looked like she saw a criminal. She felt that it was necessary to send this woman to the police station and make a good confession. Although it is true that masters at the age of 6 or 7 must be very cute. But you can't do this to him, seeing Okita Suji's expression as if he saw a criminal. Irisveel felt that her reputation was damaged. "No, I'm not, I didn't." She waved her hands hurriedly. "Although I look mature, I'm only 9 years old. My daughter is older than me. Besides, I was still there for the first time. It really wasn't me." She wanted to explain, but she couldn't say it. For a moment, Irisveel understood what it meant to be unable to defend herself. 185 Ilya. Dad's mission, she didn't do anything, but she felt ashamed. Alice felt like crying, but had no tears. However, when facing the scrutiny of Okita Suji, she was also a little curious and stole a glance at Su Mo. Alice had already accepted the fact that Ilya called her mom. But Ilya also had a father. In other words, she had a husband for no reason. Alice could never accept it. She was only 9 years old. She had never been in love. How did she suddenly have a husband? Isn't this appointed? Is this reasonable? Thinking of this, she wanted to resist the matchmaking from her daughter. As a mother in the new era, she must resist the arranged marriage from her daughter. After she mustered up the courage, she saw Su Mo's face. Suddenly, she felt that there was nothing wrong with being appointed. Of course, this was just a joke. However, after seeing Su Mo, her resistance in her heart was indeed much less. After all, no matter what era, face can really be eaten. At this time, Su Mo, who was entangled by his sudden daughter, had already figured out the situation. As a time traveler, his imagination and receptiveness were naturally stronger than Irisville. Soon, he understood what happened from Ilia's mouth. In other words, "You are my future daughter. You just appeared through time, through the summoning of the servants of the Holy Grail War." Hearing him say this, Ilia nodded happily. "Yeah, Dad is really smart," confirmed his speculation. "Is that so?" Su Mo nodded and looked at Irisville, not far away. In other words, he would take Mrs. Ellie in the future? With his eyesight, he naturally saw that Irisville was still in a pure state. In other words, it was not Mrs. Ellie, but Miss Ellie. "Hello." Being looked at by him like this, Irisville greeted him a little embarrassedly, although she had a lot of etiquette knowledge in her mind. But she really didn't know how to greet the husband of her future child. Kissing etiquette? But they're still just strangers. "Hello, Irisville. Just call me Su Mo." Su Mo nodded and temporarily accepted this setting. After saying hello, he looked around. There are also familiars watching here. If it was before, he would not mind. But now, Ilia's matter is not that simple. So, Buzz, the domineering aura burst out. The terrible mental deterrence crushed the floor. At the same time, those familiars made of spirits or animals fainted instantly under the impact of the domineering aura. All the masters lost their grasp of the battlefield situation. For the familiars, the domineering aura was like a storm. In the eyes of Irisville and others, it was just like a gentle breeze. Except for the sharp Okita Suji, the other two did not notice any difference. Holding the lovely Ilia in his arms, Su Mo smiled at Irisville. "The details are not suitable to be discussed here. Why don't we talk about it when we go home?" Irisville nodded. She also wanted to find out things related to Ilia. Go home, go home." Ilia hugged Su Mo happily. "Dad is going to praise Ilia well this time. Ilia has completed all the tasks you gave me." The happy Ilia said something that cannot be ignored. Su Mo, who had expected it, was not surprised. What if Ilia traveled from the future? There must be a reason to do so. In other words, he must have his own purpose in coming to this world. And as her own daughter, the most likely possibility is that Ilia traveled across time, specifically because of the mission she was given. And Ilia's words also verified his conjecture. "Amazing. Is there any reward Ilia wants?" Su Mo praised and encouraged his lovely daughter. Hey, Ilia was very happy to be praised. Ilia wants a lot of things, but this time is different. Dad used to give gifts to Ilia. Now it's Ilia's turn to give gifts to Dad. Although this gift was also made by Dad. Sure enough, she had something she wanted to give to herself. Chapter 222, although I don't know what it is that is worthy of my future self spending so much time to send Ilia here. But now that it's done, it must be something of sufficient value. Although Su Mo was a little curious about this, he still felt that he should go home and talk about it. The first battle of the Holy Grail War ended with a strange scene of father and daughter recognizing each other. Matu residence 10 minutes ago. Ever since Su Mo and Okita Suji left, Sakura was sitting in the corridor facing the door, looking worriedly at the direction the two were leaving, feeling very uneasy. She didn't know the specific dangers of the Holy Grail War. But I know it is definitely not a small fight. If something happens to brother Su Mo and sister Okita during the fight, she was very frightened at the thought of this possibility. It's a pity that I am too young and too immature. I can't help brother Su Mo. While thinking of this, she couldn't help but sigh. A 6-year-old girl actually let out such a heavy sigh. Most people would think she was pretending to be an adult, but Kingji didn't think so. How strong can the obsession for a girl be? Having reached the realm of dragon transformation through her own obsession, she knows better than anyone else. This time she obeyed Sakura's call not to seek a lover, but to help women in similar situations to myself. although he was surprised that the person who summoned him was actually a 6-year-old girl. But when he saw Sakura looking at Su Mo, King Ji knew that this little girl was her master. Such a persistent look in his eyes, as if he would burn himself to death. The so-called love at all costs. Nothing more than this. King Ji felt that this girl looked too much like herself. Therefore, she decided to help her master, not out of kindness or any other purpose. Kyohan-chan just wants to prove one point. Yanderers can also be happy. No, they're not Yanderas. They just love a little more passionately. They are not wrong. Thinking of this, King Ji couldn't help but feel full of responsibility. So, she stepped forward, took the tea, and put it on the floor. Then he sat next to Sakura, decided to speak tactfully first. Master, you like Master Su Mo, right? Sorry, Kyohan doesn't seem to understand what euphemism means. It was a straight shot from the start. Puff. Sakura just took a sip of tea. Upon hearing this, she sprayed all the tea on King Ji's clothes. Berserker? What are you talking about? Sakura looked a little flustered. Oh, do you want to deny it? King Ji didn't care about the tea on her body. After wiping it a little, she stared at Sakura with her golden eyes. Master may not know, but I, Kyohan, can tell the difference between truth and lies. Even if you're not my lover, master, lying to me is an absolutely negative act. King Ji hates lying, especially when her master lies. Although he does not regard Sakura as a lover. But I still hope Sakura can tell the truth. Woo! Hearing what she said, Sakura let out a somewhat shameful cry. When she was young, she didn't think too much. Since King Ji hated lying, she wouldn't lie. The reason why she was embarrassed was purely because King Ji had touched her heart. Zero, ask for flowers. Zero, I do like brother Su Mo a little bit. She whispered, her face flushed. A little. Kyohan showed a non-committal expression. A little more. I like it very much. Okay, I like it very much. Sakura said a little self-deprecatingly. Okay, master, you pass. Finally, hearing Sakura's true words, Kyohan nodded. If you were a child, you will naturally not be able to accept it in its entirety. Now, Sakura still can't distinguish between dependence, trust, respect, love, so many complicated emotions. Even if she says she likes it very much, it just means that she feels that she can't live without the other person. How much of it is romance is unknown. However, no matter what kind of relationship, it is possible for the seeds of love to sprout. Not to mention, Sakura's feelings are already strong enough. Even King Ji was attracted by this heavy feeling, and the person she would like in the future would definitely be Su Mo. Therefore, King Ji is not worried that she is messing with the rules. It seems that Master, you really want to stay with Master Su Mo, right? She asked Sakura. Sakura nodded heavily. She also realized what King Ji wanted to say, and immediately looked at King Ji expectantly. Can Berserker help me? Sure, King Ji readily agreed. This is the reason why I participated in this Holy Grail War. Compared to those fighting and killing, helping the master to successfully find love is my biggest wish. Thank you. Berserker, I didn't expect to get a helper unexpectedly. Sakura's eyes sparkled, and she was very happy. Being looked at by the little girl like this. Kyohan covered her mouth and chuckled. For some reason, she felt like a sister. Master, let me, Kyohan, teach you the highest level of secret love manual. Kyohan said with great enthusiasm. Oh. Sakura clapped her hands with a tactful look, very face-giving. Ahem. One of the most important things in the love manual is it. Kyohan cleared her throat and began to explain. It is to create time to be alone with your sweetheart. I didn't expect her to be so serious when she lectured. Yeah, Sakura nodded. I don't know where she got the notebook from, and she asked questions while taking notes. But how can I create time to be alone with brother Su Mo? She is a serious and meticulous doer, so she is naturally not satisfied with just listening to theoretical knowledge. This question happened to touch on the part that King Ji is good at. Good question. Practical experience is important. King Ji looked at Xiao Ying, a serious student, with satisfaction. Then, she introduced with pride. According to my experience, there is only one most effective way to create time alone. What is it? Following. King Ji made a confident statement. Chapter 223. As long as you can keep following Lord Su Mo, you will find Lord Su Mo alone sooner or later. If Lord Su Mo shows an expression that he needs help at this time, we will go up and give Lord Su Mo the help he needs most. In this way, Lord Su Mo will definitely have a better impression of the master and become completely obsessed with the master. Kingji taught her secret skills in detail. Retract the preface. This guy's love course has a big problem. Well, following. Hearing the content of Kingji's lecture, although Xiaoying felt that following did not seem appropriate. But Kingji's example later was really reasonable. If she could help Lord Su Mo would definitely have a better impression of her.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.